Good afternoon. On behalf of Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead, the Commission, Manager Fuentes, and staff, welcome to the City Commission meeting of the City of Truth and Consequences. This is our business meeting. It is now 1:03 on September 27th, and I would ask anybody in attendance, if you have a device that will buzz, ring, make noise, if you could please just shut that down, we would appreciate it. Madam Clerk, can I have roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green.
Here.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead. Here. Honorable Kathy Clark. Here. Honorable Ralph Heschler.
Here.
Honorable Joshua Frankel.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is silent meditation. Please join me for 15 seconds of silent meditation. Thank you. Commissioner Clark, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item is, I need a motion for approval of the agenda, please.
Mr. Mayor, I so move to approve the agenda of Wednesday, September 27, 2017, as submitted.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second. Second. I have a second by Commissioner Frankel. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. It carries unanimously. The next item is comments from the public. This is a 3-minute rule applies. If you want to address the commission, please come forward. Use the microphone at the table. And if you have a document that you would want to be as part of the official business meeting of this commission, there's a black box next to the microphone. Please put it in the box. The floor is yours.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I have been tasked to read a letter from Mr. Appel regarding Mr. Ron Finn. And the idea was, ordinarily I would do this during my city attorney report. The idea is I was going to do it actually at the outset, the public comment, because I thought Mr. Finn would be here, but he's not. Do you want me to receive the letter anyway, or should I wait till my report?
Attorney Rubin, what I'd like to do is I'd like that to be read under response to public comments, because you are responding to a comment that was made by Mr. Fenn. That would be the appropriate time to do that.
So should I do that now? Or?
No, under response to public
Oh, I
comment.
beg your pardon. I thought it was, okay. Excuse me. All right.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, so the floor is open. If anyone would like to make a public comment. Yes, ma'am. Just please, name, address, and 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Mrs. Susan McGeechee, and I bought my house 6 months ago, and I have been nothing but harassed from the city. When I came, I had all of the paperwork and everything reviewed, and I had everything reviewed by an attorney, and then I move in, and immediately the city inspector is hassling me. Immediately, Juan Fuentes comes over, gets out of his car, screams at me at the top of his lungs, "Take down that illegal fence." Okay? That property, 170 feet, east and west, I pay taxes on. That is my property. There's no, very upset. The ditch was built, the city built a substandard ditch without any permits, any easements, or any dedication from the 3 prior owners. This park, located at 8th and Copra, is also it's not a real park. The taxpayers are paying to maintain it. I pumped out over 500 gallons of water. From the excessive watering, it comes out to over 10,000 gallons a month of water is being poured into that ditch. Not feeding anybody, not making any money, costing the city money. Okay? I feel like the city needs to be a little more friendly to the people moving here. It's not about taking people's rights away. It's about saying, hey, this is it. To come and say the city's been taking care of it is a very far cry. The city's property is very obvious. Their sprinklers are very obvious. They've never taken care of anything. My biggest problem is I have no insurance on that cement ditch. My insurance company and 5 other insurance companies refused to insure that because the city built it substandard and they built it. So I have no insurance. If I go and fall in that ditch, I don't have insurance. If any kid riding a bike, riding a skateboard, or swimming in that water is injured, it is 100% liability on me as the property owner. And I don't like that, the fact that I went to an attorney, I thought I had an attorney, finds out Deschamps isn't even an attorney, he doesn't even, on his website, he doesn't even have an office in Truth or Consequences. Come to find out, he's not even an attorney, he's not a paralegal, he's not even an attorney, court attorney helpful, he's nothing. And he was representing me with your attorney. And the collusion that was done, when you read my letter and their letter, is totally different. So they're obviously colluding against me. I don't appreciate that. I thought I had an attorney. I don't. If I need to start over and sue the city, I will. But I will not be harassed by anybody, by the city manager or by the city inspector, okay? The city inspector came to inspect my house. Poor job. Now I had 3 times the contractor's been back. 3 times.
Thank you, Ms. Bergucci. Anyone else?
I hope that the executive session will allow me in so I can complete
Excuse
this.
me, the three
I've
minutes.
submitted my,
Anyone else would like to address the commission? Yes, ma'am.
Am I supposed to give you a copy of it?
So, if you want something to be part of the record, please put it in the black box right next to the microphone.
Okay,
And that's the way it becomes an official document.
thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Um,
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Deborah Martin, resident of TRC for 2.5 years, owner of professional dog grooming located at Sierra Veterinary Clinic. Holloman Air Force Base has 2 different proposals to expand their training maneuvers for F-16 pilots into previously restricted airspace. Area number 1 is 5111 CD east of Elephant Butte. Area number 2 is the EIS that we attended the meeting for the 13th of September. Their intention is to fly thousands of day and night flights east of the lake per year and thousands of day and night flights west of I-25 per year. This is not an either-or situation. They intend to enact both. The 2 proposals are being suggested by 2 different entities within the military. The contact information and the meetings are completely separate. The meeting last week had nothing to do with the 5111 proposal. During these training maneuvers, they spray toxic materials. Chaff is aluminum-coated silica glass particles, which is harmful if ingested or swallowed, harmful if ingested or inhaled. Government studies state that the impact on the land is directly related to the levels of chaff accumulated. Use of chaff over or adjacent to sensitive areas may be incompatible with land use of the area. Older chaff is an environmentally hazardous air pollutant that presents serious questions regarding the safety of surface-feeding waterfowl in rivers and streams, and a skin irritant for birds that attempt to use it as a nesting material. According to the National Weather Service, radar has demonstrated that chaff can stay airborne for 24 hours and be blown hundreds of miles. Flares are constructed of magnesium that burns at a very high temperature and considered to be the cause of many of the wildfires in Oregon this year and other states. Flares that fail to ignite, duds, are considered to be hazardous waste. Hope the city is doing something about this. Understand that the comment periods are like running out, trying to be extended. I'm sure you saw the paper. That's the one over towards Silver City. Talked to AJ, Andrew Gormalak, who was at the meeting on last Wednesday, and he said, it'll be 6 miles away from you. It blows for hundreds of miles, so I figure either he's blowing me off or he doesn't know the effect of his own materials, the ramifications that he's utilizing. And this is the one for Elephant Butte. So goodbye lake, goodbye river, goodbye water system. And they're doing it because there aren't a lot of people. It's, 11,000 people in the county, 6,000 people in the town. But the land matters and the creatures matter. So I want to speak for the creatures, the little deer that are going to get abscesses in their jaws from trying to eat this, the animals that are going to try to build nests with it, and the babies that are going to be harmed. The nature matters, not just the people, but also the land around us. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Paul Pierce, I'm a 7-year resident of TRC. I'd like to follow up on her comments. I'm on a little different track. We got shortchanged by the Air Force. a couple of weeks ago, the Air Force had a public EIS meeting here in TRC that almost everyone thought was to allow the public to be involved in their proposal to greatly expand 2 fly zones of consequence to Sierra County, west of TRC and east of TRC. Public involvement is required by the NEPA law. With a few exceptions, everyone thought that the public meeting and the comment period included the East R5111 fly zone, the critical one, and their comments and input on this critical area close to TRC and over the lake and river corridor were part of their public involvement in the EIS. Not so. The Air Force, weeks and months before the public meetings for the EIS on the west zone here in TRC, had arbitrarily decided to create a lesser environmental study, a separate EA or environmental assessment on the East Sierra County fly R5111 zone, and have been quietly herding it through, obscured behind the EIS that most folks thought covered this critical area just east of us. I've named this EA or environmental assessment the mysterious EA for the harm it is going to cause the citizens of this town and county. Because the comment period is almost done, this Sunday, October 1st, is the deadline. The citizens of this town and county are going to be denied the opportunity to be involved in this legal NEPA process on the East Zone. How many folks are going to have time to analyze and comment before Sunday and read the 150-page document the Air Force has created on this East R5111 fly zone? A draft document which, with, in my opinion, highly suspect and arbitrary and capricious conclusions, and I have read it, and it should clearly have had an EIS status instead of a lower EA status. That's why I'm saying we've been shortchanged. The Air Force arbitrarily gave it that status, possibly to avoid having to give the public more notice and holding public meetings like the one they did for the other fly zone in a couple weeks ago. That's, again, my opinion. Is there a remedy for the citizens of Sierra County? There sure is. An Air Force representative told me yesterday that if they hear from enough concerned citizens, which needs to include our government representatives, hopefully, before comment closes on Sunday, October 1st, their mysterious EA could still turn into a higher level EIS with some public hearings and more information about this potentially harmful proposal. So I respectfully request that the Commission ask the Air Force for a time extension on the public comment period, and that this draft EA become an EIS, a more significant, because this eastern fly zone is exponentially more critical than, and has more impacts than the west one that we had the EIS for. Thank you very much.
Anyone else like to address the commission?
Honorable Commissioners, Mayor, City Manager, and staff. My name is Destiny Mitchell, 815 Copra. I would like to address the Commission today on behalf of myself and not necessarily as a member of the Friend of the Pool. I believe that Millie McLeod offered a proposal at the last Commission meeting, again, not with Friends of the Pool, but as an aerobics instructor for the facility. The proposal she came up with was discussed with me, and I honestly felt that it made sense for the current climate of the swimming pool. We've known for years that we needed a resurface on our pool, and it had originally been put on hold because we didn't have the funding, and we were given passes by the state inspector because the Commission was looking into building a new facility in conjunction with the schools. However, seeing as that plan has not progressed to fruition, it is imperative now that the pool be resurfaced. I have done extensive research on past possible resurfacing techniques, and it boils down to two viable possibilities. The first is to replaster our pool. It has always been a plaster-based pool, and to replaster it would last us another 20 years. The facility would need to be drained every 4 to 5 years and acid washed to remove stains or chemical buildup, which would also eat away the plaster layer by layer, again causing us to need a new resurface down the road. However, all facilities require maintenance, and since it's to be expected, and if we decide to go with plaster, perhaps we can set aside a certain amount of money each year for the next 20 years, so when the time comes, we will not find ourselves in a bind again. The second method to use is a spray-on epoxy liner, which would attach to our stainless steel gutter systems and protect against leaks. The liner also has a life of 15 to 20 years, depending on maintenance and upkeep. And since it is an epoxy base instead of plaster, it would be much more slick
and maybe a different surface than the patrons of the pool are used to. I would like to offer my services and expertise in this project in the future, and any and all information that I have is at your disposal. Though I'm no longer employed by the City of TRC, the pool is still a passion of mine, and I will do anything in my power to help keep it functioning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Anyone else? Mr. Fenn?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Ron Fenn, 316 North Foch. I came to speak about the proposed move of the police station to the Armory. $3.3 million is what I calculate. I don't know why the city talks about 2.188. That's just the face of a loan, and does not include the interest. It does not include the $600,000 difference with the engineering estimate for the cost of doing that building. Where $600,000 is going to come from, your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. But I can tell you one thing, that this whole concept that it's paid for, which has been spouted by Chief to a number of people, is false, because in the taxation, for government taxation package or their website, there is also an ordinance for repeal of GRT. And since the GRT that was given to the police department is not 0.25%, but 2/1/8%, then I believe that we can do an initiative ordinance to repeal that 1/8 that they would spend on this particular project. In the meantime, I don't believe anybody has done any serious studying of the facility that's there from a practical standpoint. There is room in the back of that building to add 1,500 to 2,000 square feet of storage space and make it look like the building, make it blend in. I don't know of any community that wants to move their police station away from their downtown areas and their municipal buildings. Many police stations in this country are in the municipal buildings. They're not off somewhere. And I believe that back when the firehouse on 9th was being built, land was offered to them, to the police department, to build a station there and have use of the generator and all of the other facilities, and the city turned it down, saying, no, we want to be downtown. Well, you are downtown, please stay downtown. And if somebody needs some help with studying what can be done with the building, please contact me. It's part of my expertise, and I'll be more than happy to help out, and I won't charge you anything in the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the commission? Seeing none, we will move on to the next item, thank you, which is response to public comments. And Jay, you
Yes.
mentioned before, so...
Yes, I've been requested by John Appel, who is our attorney, actually our alternate attorney, handles matters when I'm not handling them, and he has written a letter dated September 14, 2017, which I have been requested to read this into the record. It starts out, it's addressed to Mr. Ron Fenn, and it's referenced in bold letters of misrepresentation as a purported officer of the city. And it reads, Dear Mr. Fenn, you are hereby instructed to cease and desist from misrepresenting yourself as an officer of the City of Truth or Consequences. That sentence is put in bold-faced letters, and then the letter continues. This letter is being sent to you at the request of the city manager and the mayor of Truth or Consequences. As we believe you are aware, Coppola Law Firm PC serves as counsel for the city on various matters as requested by the city manager or the city commission. The city for some time has been aware that you distribute, quote, business cards, unquote, bearing a likeness of the city's official seal and misrepresenting yourself as a city official with a title of, quote, co-CEO, unquote. The city has more recently learned that you have distributed documents bearing a similar likeness of the municipal seal and purporting to command third parties to take certain actions and make payments on your instructions as, quote, co-CO, unquote, of the city. A copy of one such document, a demand notice dated April 9, 2017, and directed to former city manager Jaime Aguilar is enclosed. The city has also been informed that you have sent materials to the New Mexico Department of Transportation, falsely representing yourself as an officer or employee of the city. The city does not know how many similar documents you may have sent to third parties who may not be aware that your representations and demands as a purported city official are entirely fraudulent. As you should be aware, the city as a municipal corporation acts only through its commission and its elected and appointed officers. You are neither a member of the commission nor an elected or appointed officer of the city. Your fraudulent misrepresentation of yourself as an officer of the city, coupled with your issuance of illegal monetary demands and other commands to third parties in that purported capacity, can no longer be tolerated. As a matter of protecting both the city and the general public, the city demands it cease immediately. If it does not, the city will be forced to take appropriate legal action against you. And it's signed very truly yours by John Appel of the Copper Law Firm.
Thank you. Is there any other response to public comment from the commission? Hearing none, thank you. We will move on. The next item on the agenda is consent calendar, which I need a motion for approval of the number one, City Commission regular minutes, September 13th, 2017. Number two, Public Utility Advisory Board minutes, July 17, 2017. Number three, Public Utility Advisory Board minutes, August 21st, 2017. Number four, Public Arts Advisory Board minutes, August 21st, 2017. And number five, FAA land lease renewal for the Remote Communications Air/Ground Facility, otherwise known as RCAG.
Mr. Mayor, I move the approval of the consent calendar as noted.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Frankel. Is there any further discussion on any of the items that were just called out? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, it is accepted. Next item is public hearings. Before I turn this over to Attorney Rubin to explain the battle shell process, thank you, that we will be using, under full disclosure, I like it to be known in the record that this past Sunday, I was with a group of folks from the Tesla Motor Club, and I was going around the table and asking everyone, have you been to TRC before? And we got a lot of hands, and one gentleman looked at me and said, not only have I been in TRC, but I own property in TRC. And I said, and you might be, sir? And he said, his name is Mr. Skinner, Jake Skinner, and he is the partner of Mr. Peck, who is appearing before us for some variance items under public hearing. So I'd like the record to know that I had met Mr. Skinner, not on purpose, it was totally by accident, and we did discuss two things. Number one, I said, well, I guess I'll see you on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. And he said, I thought the meeting was at 9 o'clock. And I said, no, sir, it's been postponed because we have a date in court scheduled in the morning. And the second question was, is the fire chief going to be there? And I said, sir, I do not know. That's out of my bailiwick. That would be Mr. Travis, who you have to speak to. And that was the extent of our conversation. That had anything to do with this public hearing, and I'd like the record to just show that. So with that said, Jay, would you like to explain the process as we move forward?
Sure.
Thank you.
And, you know, I'm thinking about this, that we've had batter shell hearings before, but people might say to me, what actually do you mean by a batter shell hearing? And what's the purpose of all this? So let me just spend a minute or two just making a few remarks about that. Anytime you have an issue coming up on the public agenda that involves real estate, the owner's right to use their property, if there's like an application for variance such as we have here, or there is a request for a special use permit, or a possibility that there's a question about maybe a dangerous building being destroyed, the court's determined that you want to give a full evidentiary hearing in those matters, and that's what we try to do here. Well, we don't try to do it, that's what we do. And we have a process where we let the staff testify, and they can be then questioned by this commission and by the parties, and then so on down the line. The proponents get a chance to talk, the opponents get a chance to talk, and even members of the public have a limited right to chime in, although they don't get the right to cross-examine people. But yeah, and we do this because if there ever is a legal challenge later on, I like to be able to show the courts that we gave an opponent or a proponent a full evidentiary consent to make their comments. So that being said, I think we can go forward. But one thing I was thinking that I might be able to be more helpful, and I was thinking about this since we had our last meeting, is I believe everybody has a copy of the variance ordinance. And if that's not true, let me know. I have some extra copies here. But I thought since these first two items on public hearings deal with a variance, it would be good for you to have the law involved. I saw Mr. Peck earlier before today's meeting, and I gave him a copy of the ordinance. Mr. Peck, of course, the representative of Winter Haven. So if any interested parties who do not have a copy of the ordinance, you're welcome to have it. The ordinance does make a reference to taking into consideration important issues such as public safety, so that's why I thought this was important for you to have that. So if anybody wants copies, I have them here. Just come on over, raise your hand. I have just enough. You're welcome. So, yeah, I have my last one. Any questions from the commission about what I just said?
Okay. Thank you very much. We will proceed. The first public hearing, let me explain what we're going to do. We're going to take these individually. There are two requests for variance, one on number 28. I guess that's a spot on the property, a location, a space, and then we'll do public hearing number 11 for the space on number 11. This is a quasi-semi-legal process, so when I call your name, I'm going to ask you to stand up and we will swear in everyone at the same time, so you don't have to keep on doing it over and over again. So would you please stand up, Robbie Travis, Mr. Peck, and Mr. Chief Tooley, Clinton Langdon, Connie Langdon, Glenise Ruth, and you sir, Pipkins, I guess it is, and also, let's see if there's any, and Glenise Ruth, we have everyone. Okay, if you could swear them in, please.
There's one more. There's one more. Elena Delatorre in the back.
Well, hold it. Where? Who?
Elena Delatorre. Did she sign it?
No.
You didn't sign. You were on one of the pages?
What's your name, ma'am?
Elena
Might have been the
Delatorre.
signature.
Oh, lady, we
We
don't have that.
Is she
Let
a
me check.
proponent or a opponent?
Are you for or against this, ma'am? Because there's no signature here for you. Maybe you signed in just the attendance sheet, by mistake? Okay.
So we can let her do Delatorre at the end.
Or we can still,
No,
that's
that's
not a problem.
No, I know, but I was saying
Oh,
we can let
yeah.
her
So
do
are you gonna, do you want to be, are you an opponent or a proponent? Okay, and on space 28 and space 11? Okay, and again, the spelling, the correct spelling of your name, ma'am? D-E or B-E?
D, as in David.
Okay. D-E-L-A? Okay, very good. And did you want to be an opponent on space 11?
I can too.
It's up to you. Okay. All right, so they're ready to be sworn in. Thank you.
Please raise your hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay, thank you. So we will start with space number 28, and the process is going to be, I think as Jay might have touched on, staff will do the presentation. Then the commission will ask staff some questions if we have any questions. Proponents may cross-examine staff. Opponents may cross-examine staff. And then we will go on to the same process we'll use for proponents, opponents, and then anyone from the public who just wants to make a comment. Let me just make this so it's official. This is a public hearing requesting for a variance on space number 28 to be closer than 15 feet apart at Winter Haven Mobile Home Park, 2335 Broadway. Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. Our presenter is Robbie Travis, the building inspector.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Mayor. Request for a variance at Winter Haven Mobile Home Park, 2335 South Broadway, space number 28, to be closer apart, which the code requires in section 1114-5A. Some background on this: Mr. Skinner, Mr. Peck recently purchased this property and came into my office and went over some of the conditions of the park and how many spaces they would have and if they were grandfathered in, those type of issues. They did ask about the code pertaining to that, and we presented that. We gave them the code and where it was found in our code book, or our municipal code. They proceeded to move in to bigger mobile homes than the park could really handle. At that time, the parks did not require a come in and get a permit from me. If it's an approved mobile home park, they're considered not temporary type housing where they can move in and out. And so they did not contact me when they moved it in. They did get a state permit, moved them in, that type of thing. I got a call from some of the tenants there, some complaints about it, that they were too big, and proceeded to go down and go over it with them. Contacted Mr. Skinner, Mr. Peck. Number 28 is approximately 2.5 inches under the code. So it's 12.7 inches at the closest part distance, and then the front end is 13.1. But when they came in, we told them, hey, they'd already done a bunch of stuff. We would go ahead and work with them if they would move the other space out. And we'll get with the other space. We'll talk about that on the next one. So staff recommendation is that to approve space number 28 being only 2.5 inches away from the code. And then the planning application, the comprehensive statement, and the plans are all here. This is a photo of that. And then we have one more. This is the other side of it. And so there is room to go ahead and move it over the 2 foot if they need to. But we were trying to work with them if they would move the other one out of there. And so that's why we went ahead and told them that they could leave this one there. But, you know, each place needs, our code requires for a storage unit, a parking place, those type of things, in the code. So we have that all listed in our code if there's any questions there. So I'll stand for any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions, Commissioner Clark?
Yeah, Mr. Travis, I'm looking at that and I'm seeing a gas meter.
Yes.
So, and what I've read about these is like, different places have rules and regulations for spacing between the actual mobile homes themselves and then spacing for fencing, et cetera, et cetera. But this meter looks like it's like, maybe 3 or 4 feet into that 12-foot, 7-inch space. So there really is no access in there, for example, for another car or anything like that. Are we looking at that and just
That's correct. This side
would
not be the parking. The other side is actually where they would be parking, and that's not a real good picture because it's over the dumpster, but there is room to be able to park on this side here. There's some rocks along the side there where the carport is, and so there is room for parking on this side, but this other side was not for parking. So
I guess the question I'm asking is the meter just not even considered in the spacing between mobile homes in a park?
Yeah, it may be. It's not under my jurisdiction. It's under the gas company and the plumbing inspector's jurisdiction.
And we don't know what that is.
But I don't think it's an issue. As far as I know of, I know that on houses, the gas meter can be right next to the house,
Right.
so those type things. So
And is there plenty of space on the other side of the mobile home next to number 28 for parking?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. You're saying on this side or on the one next door?
This other house.
Yes, they have a carport and stuff, and in fact, I think the carport eventually was over on this side in the beginning, and they moved it over to the other side and then moved this to be able to use that space. Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Travis. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions from the commission? I do have one. Chief Tully, under
Don't we ask
the,
him when he gets in?
I'm sorry, he's just part of the staff.
Oh, he's staffing. Oh, I'm not finished.
So I'm going to refer to this variance section 11-5-5. Variance shall not be granted in such case where it will be adversely affect adjoining properties, impair established property values, or endanger public safety. And that's what I want to talk to you about as our fire chief, fire marshal. If the God forbid should happen, you got a gas deal there, you got flammable material in the building, does the 2.5 foot closeness take away the ability for our fire department to safely and effectively fight a fire if it should happen?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for allowing me to be here today. A lot of the fire codes, there's no specific distance. The norm is anywhere from 10 feet to 15 feet. And that's kind of the norm of what a lot of the fire codes are. Our code happens to be 15 feet, and of course, we would love to see even 20 or more feet, just makes it that much safer around there. Having the issues with gas meters, we do have gas meters that are right up against the houses in some locations. So the gas meter, a lot of times we know where they're at. The biggest thing that we run into in issues like that is somebody hitting them. So they're not barricaded enough to keep the traffic from a vehicle hitting them. That's our biggest concern. Having them that close to the building, it's easy for us to get in there and usually shut those off. So this issue here is kind of on the bubble. Of course, we would like to see 15 feet. The issue that I see as well is you have that porch overhang. So technically that considers part of the actual structure. So if you take it from the overhang to that other structure, now you're even closer. Because what happens with fires, if fire were to come out, instead of going straight up, it would go underneath the porch and go towards the trailer. So there's issues like that we look at. I did see this today. I would like to see this further apart, just from a public safety point of view. But where the city goes with this, I know we have the 15 foot as our code. So, I mean, we can live with it, but ultimately, we would like to see more distance between those trailers.
Thank you. Commissioner Clark, did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah. So, Mr. Travis, now, if we're going to look at that porch,
Okay.
and what I read is like, 3 feet out from trailers or 5 feet out from trailers. I don't know exactly what our code is, but the fire chief brings up a really interesting point. If we're only 2 feet away from that overhang from one mobile home to the other mobile home, they could both potentially go on fire.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is true. One of the things, I did contact Mr. Tully when this was going on. He did not have time to go look at it with me at that point, but he did say his code was a minimum of 10 feet, that he would like to see more, but 10 feet was his code pretty much. So that's what we based our decision off of. Now the porch situation, if you go through all these mobile home parks, every one of them have porches. If you go down the line on this one here, every one of them is like this. So if we're going to make them do it, are we going to require that in all the mobile home parks? And that's because it's a grandfathered or an older park, it has a lot of these things happen where they added stuff on and moved a carport, did different things. And so it's up to the commission however they want to apply it, but we just want to be fair with everybody, and make sure that we're consistent.
So that's the other question then. Define grandfather. My understanding, I'm just going to tell you my understanding and correct me if I'm incorrect. Grandfather is when you've got an existing structure
and the wiring and all the plumbing and everything, and you haven't touched it. And then you change an ordinance, as long as you don't touch that building is grandfathered in. If you do something after a new ordinance is put into place that would have made that incorrect or improper or something like that, you cannot do anything after the fact unless it meets the new code. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. You lose your grandfathering once you
So there is no
change
grandfather if there was nothing in space 28 after that ordinance was created. Is that correct?
Well, essentially, in space, they came in and asked, what is a grandfather? Do I have, I think it's 31 spaces. And I said, yes, if everything stays the same, you have 31 spaces. So that is a space, but because mobile homes back in the 60s and 70s were, you know, a 10 by 30, which most of them are there, whatever, and then they move in a 14 by 70 or 60, whatever it might be. Yeah, so you could be correct,
So-
you know.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Mr. Heschel? Yes, sir.
Mr. Travis, are the people that live in the adjacent motorhome here, or mobile home here, to testify today, or have you heard from them?
Yes, they are here today.
Okay,
yeah.
all right. We'll wait for that then. Thank you.
Okay.
If seeing no other questions from the commission, proponents may cross-examine staff, and that would be Mr. Peck.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can make a suggestion for all the witnesses, if you have evidence, you know, physical evidence such as photographs or written documentation, let's make that part of the record. That way, if this case ever is reviewed, that we have all this in the record.
Sure, and would you like that Attorney Ruben to be put in the black box or handled separately?
Whatever your preferences, whatever it needs for the commission.
Jay, just, Mr. Mayor, if it's a photo or something for the record, the commission will have to see that. So I think if it's shared with the commissioners, and the clerk can hold on to them and then make part of the record. I think that-
That's what I had in mind, because I was thinking the same thing. Like, for example, the photograph should be part of the record.
Right.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. Good.
Very good. Okay, Mr. Peck?
Honorable Mayor and Commission, again, hello, thank you guys for your time. I do want to clarify a couple of points in this cross-examination. I personally visited Mr. Travis in advance of purchasing or putting an offer on this mobile home park as a singular individual at that time. My partner that co-owns this property with me, Jake Skinner, was not present in that initial meeting. It was me only originally. And it was then when I had started to inquire about the grandfather clause and was given the direction that he just shared with you, that there has always been 31 spaces in that mobile home park. And what I mean by that is there is 31 gas meters, 31 hookup connections for utilities, for electric, plumbing, gas. Mr. Travis can also contest that the property size of our park does allow for, I believe, 38 or 39 mobile homes. So we are a lot less dense than what we truly could be. We are not proposing to increase the density, but rather to keep what we were told that we had, which was 31 spaces. When we looked at this, at purchasing this park, 31 spaces would work for us with our vision of investing into this town and keeping a reasonable rent for our tenants, low income rent for our tenants. And if we are required to move any home, what it's going to do is...
Actually, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second.
Sure.
You're going to, as a proponent, you are going to get an opportunity to present your case.
Sure.
You're presenting your case right now. What you should be using this time is your opportunity to question Mr. Travis or Chief Tooley. So please, let's make it a question rather than a statement, and you will get your chance to make your statement.
I appreciate that. Okay, well, in regards to questions, we believe we did the right thing when we acquired this park. We did as he indicated. We went to the state of New Mexico and required and took care of every permit we need to move these homes into this park. We were issued the state of New Mexico permit to move, the transportation permit, to move
and
these
the question, Mr. Peck, is what?
So,
Mr. Travis?
this is my question. Why is the town of TRC not proactively working with the state of New Mexico if you guys have a different requirement to verify setbacks, distances before the state of New Mexico issues a permit to bring a home into this park? All of this could be avoided before there was any financial expense made from moving to utility hookup if the town is proactively working with CID, the State of New Mexico Construction Industries, before the permits are issued. You guys have that joint relationship.
I think Mr. Travis has the gist of the question, if you'd like to address that or not. Here's your opportunity, sir.
Yes, we do work with CID, the Manufactured Housing Division. They have a little, on their application, a little slot down there that says municipality approval. The problem is this was a mobile home park not setting on a permanent foundation. And that's where the issue, CID does not have anything like that right now. One of the corrective actions that we took recently is with the commission was we did a new manufactured home code and updated our code to where now every manufacturer or every mobile home park in town has to come in and get a permit from us. And it was specifically because, one of the reasons was specifically because of this reason that it hit, you guys had put something in there, we didn't know about it, and we're trying to control that, so.
I would like to also acknowledge in my cross-examination too that we've done the right thing with the town as well. The minute that these homes were put into this park, we went to your assessor's office and took titles and all the information to start the taxes immediately to help the income for this town. So we're also paying taxes, property taxes on these homes for this town for something that is not producing any income for us as well.
Mr. Peck, do you have any other questions?
Yes, while I'm doing that,
because what you're going to do is we're not going to listen to you when you become the proponent because you already heard it.
Right.
So please, this is your opportunity. So these are the rules. Let's play by them, and we want to give you your day in front of this commission. Let's utilize that time wisely. This is your opportunity to cross-examine staff, not to make a statement of what. Cross-examine what you heard Mr. Travis and Chief Tooley say. So it becomes a part of the record.
I will, all right, under those terms, I would also like to verify that we were given your consent to move forward and occupy this home, correct? That's what allowed us to call out public utilities. The gas is approved, wanted to verify that, but you did give us consent to move forward and occupy this home, correct? Correct. And in that process, we answered your question. The gas company came out, has signed off on that permit. All of the other companies have done so as well. So we meet every other regulation that's required. I think that's all I have for cross-examination. I'll clarify the rest in the next.
Okay, Mr. Peck, as long as you're up here and you have every right, do you have any questions for Chief Tooley of what he had said?
I don't, and I would just agree that.
Okay, that's it. I was waiting for a yes or no answer. Thank you very much. Okay, so that ends that portion of staff's presentation. Why don't you just stay up there, sir? Sure. Proponents are sworn in, and you've been already sworn in. Proponents' presentation. This is your opportunity, sir. The floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Okay, great. So there has been other questions about who lives in the home to the left of that. That home is currently vacant. 2 individuals were sworn in here during the last meeting, Joe and Elena. I'd like to make it very clear for the record that you guys are willing to go look at the magistrate court and see a default judgment against them. They do not live on our park, and I feel they are here to act against us because they are very upset that they have a forced judgment against them and have been evicted from our park for non-payment. So you guys can look up that record. It is available at magistrate court. That ended last week, so they do not live in our park, and there is a judgment against them for non-payment. We were awarded that judgment. So that should contradict them saying that we are these awful tenants. It is also important to note that we've been a very good member of this town. Your compliance officer cited 15 properties 3 weeks ago for weed control. We were the only property per your compliance officer that participated in the adequate cleanup and was dismissed in court. The town had to move on action on all the other 14. We have been a very good team and member to your town. I have family in this town. That's what helped me to invest into this town. I saw the bigger picture. I did again go into the town prior to buying this park to verify that we had the right to 31 spaces as they sit. I want to make it clear that there are post office box numbers for all 31 of those spaces. There are utilities in places for all 31 of those spaces. I will also tell the commission and the mayor's office that since we bought this park, this is critical to note, that in June 30th of 2017, another one of our homes removed from our park. There was a private sale. We didn't own the home. We listed the lot. The home was removed down Copper Street. The same issue now exists on Copper Street. The home was moved out of our park with no permits. The town wasn't notified. They didn't go get their construction industries permit like we did. They've moved a home from our park to another park, and their setbacks are equal to or less than ours. So this same issue, like Mr. Travis has indicated, is in all of these parks in this town. I don't have a problem if you guys ultimately decline both of our sets today, as long as you're going to be consistent and do for one, do for all, and go to every park and start enforcing this. Because I have, when we submitted this variance application, I brought that information to Mr. Travis. He's aware of the space. That home has utility hookups.
Excuse me, Mayor. Point of order, Mr. Peck. I'm going to reiterate what the mayor said. This is a question to our staff. It's not conversation to us.
This is under proponent, this is the...
He has the opportunity to say this now. Excuse me then, Mr. Peck.
Actually, reason you don't have this in front of you, so it's understandable. Okay. So let me read it. Proponent's presentation. This is, we are on proponents now.
Thank you.
Sorry for the interruption. I apologize.
It was that 2 minutes, 30 seconds. May I have that much time left?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Sure.
You know, I wonder if I could just also maybe clarify something for Mr. Peck's benefit. You know, you understand we're actually having 2 batter shell hearings today. This is actually, and right now we're doing the first one. And if I'm reading the commission action form correctly, staff is approving, or you're approving the variance for this particular.
I beg your pardon, Attorney Rubin. It is approved by the commission.
No, I know that, but
the vote is made by the commission, so no approval and no pre-approval has been made at all, sir.
I didn't mean it that way. What I meant was he was cross-examining staff, and staff actually was the one that made the recommendation to approve the variance. I didn't know if he was aware that we had segregated 2 variance departments.
I thought I made that clear. Maybe I didn't. I apologize that we were going to take these individually.
Okay.
But staff's communication with the commission has nothing to do with the vote that the commission will be tasked to take.
And I knew that. I'm just commenting. I didn't know Mr. Peck was aware that he's cross-examining staff on the issue that the staff was already on their side. I didn't know. Okay. All right.
Well, and again, I apologize for my I don't participate in public hearings like this, and my advice maybe would be some more information to your constituents before they come up here, because I don't know what any of this is, you know. So in respect to other fellow property owners in the future, maybe some more education for them in advance of the hearing would be helpful.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question? Could you, Mr. Peck, just specify to us what the benefit of approving this variance would be, and what it's going to do to benefit our community and the population?
Mayor Pro Tem, I love that question, but if I may, to follow the regular procedure, are you finished with your presentation? Because staff, commissioners do not ask you questions until you have an ample opportunity within the time limit to present your case.
I can give you some closing notes on that, yes.
Okay, so if you can give us some closing notes right now, then I'd like you to address Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead's question.
So again, just closing notes for simplicity here. The recommendation of the staff is for approval, and we appreciate that. We believe that this is the right thing for this town. We believe that we have been given the approval for 31 spaces grandfathered in, and that's what we expected to stay within those confinements. And to answer your question, even though I still have the time, what this will do is give low-income housing for senior living in this town. If we are forced to move or spend any more money or any additional loss of income All it ultimately does is affect our overall rates that we have to increase to the current tenants that are living in our park, is what it does for us. I believe, I'm asking that you guys work with us. We can be a great neighbor to you all. We can be a great property owner, and we will continue to work with you all, but that's what we believe. We were under the right pretense in doing what we were doing when we moved this park, when we moved these homes into this park.
Thank you, Mr. Peck. Are there any, does that, Mayor Pro Tem, you? No follow-up? Okay. Are there any other questions of Mr. Peck from the commission? Commissioner Heschler, yes, sir.
Mr. Peck, what year was that mobile home park plotted and planned out?
Phenomenal question. When I met with Mr. Travis before we bought the park, I proposed that same very question. The town has no information on that. We don't have it either. I know that, I believe, I don't know, I believe that the park has been in existence since the 70s. In some of the dialogue that I've had with some of the tenants that have been very active in that park for many, many years. I believe that it was put into existence sometime in the 70s.
But you know for sure that it's plotted out for 31 spaces?
Yes, sir. On our survey, when we purchased the park, and the initial layout has utilities, hookups, electric, and gas meter stubs for 31 spaces actively. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And 31 post office box addresses as well.
How do you propose that the city should handle it then? I think the mayor alluded to it earlier that back then the RVs, the houses were 10 by 30, and now they're going to be 40 by 60. You still have room for 31 spaces. How do we fit these newer units that are obviously larger into the same 31 spaces? Something's got to give somewhere.
That's a great question, and I believe that that is going to require additional change for every park owner in this town, and that's going to take a lot more serious look at for you guys as the commission to make those answers, to make those decisions. Every park in this town, at least in my neighborhood, does not meet any of those new regulations. So the new regulations are meant for new parks. Nobody, this could be potentially a major can of worms for this town if you guys are going to change enforcement on this, because like I just indicated, I just gave you another property address that has moved a home without any permitting and is actually occupied right now and has tenants living in it, as what I've been told. So I don't have the answer for you there. We can be proactive if there's a worry of fire. My background, I was a firefighter. I was a firefighter, paramedic. I fought fires. There's lots of conditions that one would agree that change that. Humidity, temperature, porches, no porches. I agree to all of that, but I don't know what the answer is for that. But I will tell you that I honestly believed when we acquired this park that we were grandfathered in for 31 spaces. That's all we wanted. We did not want to increase the density, even though we were allowed to have, I believe, up to 38 or 39 homes. That wasn't our goal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have any questions? Mr. Peck? Staff, do you have any questions of Mr. Peck? Chief Tully, do you have any questions of Mr. Peck?
What was the date of that mobile home was put there?
Bear with me. February 16th, 2017.
And how much room is between on the other side of it in the next space?
On the right of it?
Yeah, to the right of 28, how much space is there between that and the next space over?
30, maybe? I don't know. I don't have the actual measurement. From that end of 28 to the porch, to the carport. Well, yeah, the carport's under 30 feet, but we're talking from structure to structure. What's this question? You got it at least 30 feet.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Heschler?
Mr. Peck, when were you given the regulations, current regulations? Was it before or after you moved the trailer in?
After we moved the trailer. We talked about a website in my preliminary meeting. I left, when I met the first time with Mr. Travis doing my due diligence, I was left with nothing but his business card. There was no regulations given. There was a website provided to us, not even regulations, but a website, and then the variance process emailed to us after he visited our park.
Any other questions of staff, Mr. Peck? Seeing none, this gives the opponents an opportunity to cross-examine Mr. Peck. Do any of the opponents want to make not a statement, but have a question for Mr. Peck? And sir, you should stay there just in case you have someone who wants to ask you a question. And your name, sir, is?
Clinton Langdon.
Okay,
I'm a
Mr.
resident of Winter Haven Senior Park.
Okay.
I was just wondering why Mr. Peck wasn't given the distances for trailers in the mobile home park before he moved it in, because to me, that should be something that should be, have access to, so that they don't make a mistake.
Okay, Mr. Langdon, it's a point well taken, or not, as the case might be, but this is an opportunity to be cross-examined. You know, if you have any question, you know, basically cross-examination means a question and not a statement.
I said, why wasn't it given?
Right. So, but was that addressed to Mr. Peck?
No.
No. Now is your opportunity to cross-examine the proponent.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have no question.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Connie Langdon.
Okay, please.
Clint's wife. And I hope I'm phrasing this proper, but from what you have said, does that mean all of us are going to lose our carports in order to get more trailers into the spaces?
No, ma'am. Great question. I can show you how we have, when we acquired the park, how the 31 spaces were laid out. I don't think that has anything to do with your portion of the park at all. You're welcome to have that, but that's just kind of how it's laid out now. That's how you arrive at your 31 spaces. The ones that have the circles are the open legends. So yeah, no, that doesn't affect you and your position in your home at all.
Okay. And I don't know, I probably shouldn't ask what I want to. I'll do it the next time.
Okay. Is there any other person who signed up as an opponent want to ask Mr. Peck a question? Yes, ma'am.
Did you say Gladys Road?
No, this woman, Elena?
My name is Elena Landora, and I was the one that lived in that trailer there.
Okay, and your question to Mr.
My
Peck
question is, why was ours the only one that had the carport and the storage building moved? We had carport and a storage building right there where that trailer is now. So why was ours the only one picked? Because everybody else has got their carport and their storage building.
Okay.
And they took away our backyard, they took away our front yard, so why did you do that? And why couldn't you pick somebody else besides us?
Great question. Your home, where your carport was formerly, your carport and the storage unit was actually taking up one of the other spots.
Right, so
that
why
already
didn't you
had-
pick something smaller to put there instead of this big humongous thing?
I didn't make that acquisition, that was actually my partner's, but
And then, did you notice that the front doors are on the back side, on this side?
there's doors on both sides.
I know, but there's no doorknobs on the other side, so this is considered the front door.
It's not occupied yet, either side could be the front
And it
door.
wasn't occupied since May.
Right.
So why did you put it in and make our electric bill go up? Because our
Our lack
puny
of,
little, air conditioner wasn't working.
our lack of not being able to occupy it is not due to our delays.
And
due to
then
the-
why did you raise the rent now? Now it's up for rent and you raised the rent. That's what I heard. So, you just made us get out so that you could do that, right?
No, ma'am, I disagree
Yeah,
with
well,
that.
that's what I believe. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else, an opponent, who wants to ask Mr. Peck a question? Yes, ma'am.
I do.
Hold it, okay, go ahead, Joe.
My name is Demi Jo Pipkins. I live in 1407 Aluminum. I want to know why we were evicted from that trailer.
Your magistrate court case dictated that, sir.
No, they didn't, because I appealed it today.
Well, at this point, it's been awarded.
No, it's not. It has not been.
I don't publicly have to answer that question.
No, you don't, because you will in court, district court.
And, excuse me, sir, we're talking about a variance request
Okay.
for
I have
slot
another
number
question.
28. That has nothing to do with any other trailer that is on this piece of property. If you have an issue with Mr. Peck that's going into the magistrate's court or whatever, that will be discussed there.
Yeah,
Right
district
now,
court.
you do, as an assigned-up opponent and a sworn-in opponent, do you have any question of Mr. Peck that pertains to the application for the variance on slot number 28?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so please ask Mr. Peck that question.
How come that trailer has not been moved?
Because we're in a variance state, right? Well, first, to answer your question first, we were given permission to move forward and occupy it. Now that's delayed or rescinded, and now we're going through this process.
Did you not tell me that you told them to move those trailers out in your office?
So your opportunity, your chance to cross-examine staff was adequately discussed, and that was when your opportunity, if you had a question for Mr. Travis. Now we're at the point where you legally have an opportunity to question Mr. Peck about the application of a variance for slot number 28, and that is all this commission will entertain and hear. So if you have a question about the application for the variance on 28, please, this is your opportunity to ask Mr. Peck.
Well, I want to know why 28 has not been moved.
I believe I just answered that for you. We were given the consent to move forward and occupy it. That's been rescinded. We're through the variance process. That's what's going to be dictated today.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Glennis, did you want to?
Well, I can't talk because I want to talk about something else besides number 28.
Okay.
I'm number 29 right next to it.
Well, if you want to talk about number 11, that will be up later, if that's what you're referring to, ma'am. It's going to be handled separately, so you will get that opportunity. Okay. If there's no other opponents, we are going to move on. Thank you, Mr. Peck. Opponents. Opponents are sworn in. You have been sworn in. Opponents' presentation. Is there anyone of the Clinton, of the Langdons, Ruch, or the Del Torre who want to make a statement, or this is your opportunity right now? You've had an opportunity to cross-examine staff. You've had an opportunity to cross-examine the person who's applying for this. I beg your pardon. Yes, you will. Yes. And so, because if you were a proponent, proponents may cross-examine staff, and possibly I misspoke, not loud enough, and you didn't hear me, but I think your wife agreed with what I was saying, so
That's fine. I just wanted to say one thing. Jeremy just gave us a plat of the park, and I noticed on here that number 26, which is the brown trailer there, and 28, there should be a space in between them for 27. I don't think there's space enough to put a trailer in between those two trailers there. And it's a senior park. I'm very high on fire code because I have a very good friend that was killed in a trailer that was too close together in a park in Colorado. They were 10 feet apart. This trailer started on fire. The one on the right of it caught on fire because it was on fire. The person in the one on the right burned up in it because they were in bed asleep. It was a senior. And I am very strong on setting apart enough to maintain fire code.
So as long as you're up here, sir, does the commission have any questions of Mr. Langdon? Does staff have any questions of Mr. Langdon? Mr. Peck, do you have any questions of Mr. Langdon? Okay, thank you very much, I appreciate it. Are there any other opponents who would like to make a statement? Yes, ma'am.
I'd just like to say that we were real happy that we've been there for 3 years, and when they moved it in, I can measure from the porch, and that's not including the overhang, from the porch to the window is 5 feet exactly. And it's like, what kind of life are you living if you've got your neighbor doing something in their room while you're sitting out on the porch trying to relax. It's the quality of life here also that pertains to the senior community, and I think they're taking that away. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am, just one second, ma'am. Let me see, do the commissioners have any question? Any commissioner have any questions? Seeing none, does staff have any questions? Seeing none, Mr. Peck, do you have any questions?
I do. I have a quick question for you in regards to the back porch, if we're just making mention of that. I agree to quality of life. It's important to point, do you have a beautiful front porch on that house?
Nope.
I would disagree. There's a porch.
It's a little square porch. 2 chairs fit on there. And then we did have a ramp on the back porch, and it had to be dismantled, and the new ramp had to be put in the front, which is more difficult to get to than it was in the back. And the back steps, you can go down the back steps, and the front door to the next trailer is right there. And there's no steps there yet, but how are you going to get in the building? That's what I'm saying. It's the quality of life between the 2 trailers. You know, I have family that still comes down to visit, and I know we're supposed to be quiet, but you're still going to have a little buzz, people talking and having activities, and you don't want to disturb your neighbors, and I don't want them to disturb me. But if you've got them 5 feet away, you're going to disturb somebody.
Mr. Peck, any other questions? Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other opponents that want to make a statement? Seeing none, we will move on now to public individual. Is there any member of the public who would like to make a statement? Okay, seeing none. Joe, are you allowed to speak, Attorney Rubin, as an opponent or a proponent, then turn around and become part of the public and speak another time? Because if we do that, then we're going to be here for another 5 hours.
I usually like to be in favor of having it open, but I think it's something like that, I would have to say that would not be a good idea.
Okay, thank you. You had the opportunity, sir. Sir, you signed up as an opponent. Excuse me. You had an opportunity when Mr. Peck or staff was making their presentation. I called for. You are an opponent, right? And the opponents were given the opportunity to, well, everyone else seemed to have heard me, and I'm sorry, sir, that you did not. Sir, I'm not going to accept your request. This public hearing is over on this portion. Number 2, public hearing. Request for variance on space number, on space number 11 to be closer than 15 foot apart at Winter Haven Mobile Home Park, 2335 Broadway. Truth and consequences. Let us make sure everyone has been sworn in. 1, 2, 3. Yes, everyone has been sworn in. So we will now start with staff's presentation.
Okay, this is the same address and space number 11, and request for a variance for space number 11 to be closer than 15 feet apart. Code section 11-14-5A, standards minimum distance mobile to mobile. Mr. Skinner, Mr. Peck came in, met with me, the same situation. We went over it. I think the real key here is that they're too big of units to go into the spaces that they, if they're going to keep 31 spaces and go to bigger units, then, it's going to be an issue. Space number 11, actually, Mr. Skinner and Mr. Peck had agreed to move it and sell it off if we would allow number 28 to stay there, and that was pretty much the reason that we said, okay, it's within 2 foot or so, we'll go ahead and let that one, but if you'll move this one off. The main reason this one is an issue is it also sticks out into the driveway quite a bit, and it's between the 2 trees there, and if you can see it sticking out there, it sticks out, a good ways. And then this is from the entrance coming in. This little turnaround here we need for fire safety, emergency vehicles to be able to get in. And as you can see from the driveway looking in, how far it sets in there. We do have a this Google map kind of is a good indication. It shows that that one over there was a very small unit with a storage unit behind it. And then, when they moved the bigger one in, let me get back to it here, went to that, so that's really the issue. We would, staff recommendation would be to not approve this one because it just is too close to the trees. It sticks out too far, and is only 10 foot 4 inches. So I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions of Building Inspector Robbie Travis? Commissioner Clark.
Mr. Travis, what's the state regulation for spacing and manufactured mobile homes in a park now?
I really don't know, honestly. I just know our code says 15 feet, and that's what we go off of. So
I'm trying to find the state code, and I'm not finding it. Do you by any chance know, Mr. Franco? It's a question that I'd like to know because we can't be less lenient than the state rules and regulations. And if the state rules and regulations are 10, for example, then none of these fly.
Yeah, I don't know, honestly. I just know our code is 15 foot. Mr. Tooley is tried to find it in his fire code because he thought his fire code said 10 feet. But he's got a pamphlet on manufactured homes for setting and placement from the fire end of it, and there's nothing in there on it either. So
I would say this on zoning question, the courts will almost they will generally defer to the local regulations, the local ordinances.
But if the state says one thing, we can't make it more lenient, we can make it more strict. Isn't that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Well, I know that's true in criminal cases. I don't necessarily know. I don't know that that's necessarily true in this situation. That's why
it works that way with the floodplain flood that we have here. On state has no floodplain restrictions on homes or manufactured homes, but we do, and we can be more strict than that. But that's normally the way it works. But yeah, our code is the 15 feet, that we have established.
So that brings up another question that maybe I'll bring it up now, if that's okay, you think? The question, and Attorney Rubin, you may need to chime in and help Mr. Travis with this one, but let's say that the state is 10 and we're 15, and we go ahead and approve these variances, and there's a fire, and somebody gets hurt or killed. What's our liability as a commission if we go and make something that is mandated by the state that's more strict than what we are and someone gets hurt?
Right. I couldn't tell you the liability. That would be from Attorney Rubin, but we are over the 10 feet. It's 10 foot 4. So
no, I understand.
You're saying
I'm just saying hypothetically,
yeah.
Whatever, if the state were something different.
If you're correct, if there's a state regulation that it has to be 10 feet, it can't be, it can't be any different than that. You're right. I guess I just in my own mind, I don't think that's how it works, Commissioner Clark. I think actually we do have the states do defer to the local municipalities when it comes to these zoning ordinances. That's always been my understanding.
Thank you.
If I may, Chief Tooley, I saw you kind of raise your hand when Commissioner Clark was asking a question. I thought maybe you had the answer.
Well, I don't necessarily have the answer, Mayor and Commissioners. Other than what our code, and the reason it's 15 feet is because we are more strict than a lot of other places. The codes that I've read throughout the country, the minimum I've ever seen is 10 feet. And then from there it goes up. So the strictness that we put in play in this is that we want that distance between those trailers. So that's why we put it to 15 in our city code.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Clark, do you have a follow-up?
Well, no, I think I got the 10 because that's California's code. Currently, they used to have it like 6 feet, and then they moved it to 10 because they were having trouble with the things being too close. So if we've gone to 15, we're actually trying to be more safe then
Yes.
less safe.
Right,
That's
yes.
correct.
The larger the number, safer you're being.
So if the state's 10 and we're 15, then we're actually doing ourselves a favor.
Yes.
Okay, all
Correct.
right, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Any questions from the commission on this? All right, the next is proponents. Mr. Peck, do you have any follow-up questions on space number 11 to staff?
Cross-examination.
Yeah, cross-examination. That's a question, not a statement.
I would like to present to the commission so they could see this. I know the top in cross-examination was the fact that that trailer comes out too far for drive-through. May I provide a copy of this map that can go on the overhead?
Okay. And is the question that you are going to ask staff, is that pertaining to the document that the commission is looking at right now?
Yes.
Okay, please ask that question.
Oh, it won't be on the overhead. Okay, so on this map that I, or this layout that I have just given you guys, I would question, and let me bring it up since it's not going up. I want to make sure I have one as well, so I question this the right way. Just hold on, thank you. Okay, so I provided you guys a layout, and what I've done is I've given the commission and Robbie a layout of the distance from home to home, from each side of the park. We're talking about space number 11 right now, and this space number 11, from going from trailer to trailer, is actually 57.8 feet away from the other trailer directly on the side of it. My question is, why would you have a concern with the travel through distance at 57.8 when the trailers on the very back of the park only have 40.5 feet? That's my question.
I think because at this end here, you know, our code requires a 50-foot radius to be able to, no mobile home park can be a dead end, so it has to have a cul-de-sac at the end or near the end. And that's the reason, you know, that tree's there, and go back here. No, it's this way. That's the reason that is there, you know, is for that, for emergency vehicles, trash trucks, you know, whatever to get around in there. The reason it's narrower at the back may be because at the back it can do that, but at the, you know, in this area here, it has to have the access to get around. And I know at one time you guys had told me you were thinking of taking that out, and going to do that, and I said, no, we need that, you know, yeah.
Would you agree, if we go to another picture, would you agree that we have not impeded on that turnaround in that cul-de-sac, and you have a much better view of that? Mobile home 11, there you go. Mobile home 11 does not stop you from doing your full turnaround for any emergency vehicle whatsoever. I think you have well over 50 feet. I don't have the measurement, but you have well over 50 feet. And in the event that we didn't, we would be willing to move the railroad ties and bring it back to give you greater than that. But would you agree that that does not affect your turnaround of that radius like we discussed?
I'm not really sure about that, if it affects it or not. That would be more of a question for Mr. Tooley to see what he can get in there. But I think no matter what, if you look at it from the other angle, even, let me go back here. From this angle here is from the backside looking at it, you can see that thing sticks way out in there. And you may say 57 feet to mobile, but, you know, to the pole there in the trash can, I'll bet you're not, do you know how wide that is?
I don't, but there would be
You know, I'll bet
nothing
you're, you know, 30, 36, maybe 40 feet in there. And that's our concern, is that, you know, you have power lines and trash can stuff that's there, gas meters that might be, whatever, to get up into this end of the court is a real concern.
Okay, but what would trailer number 11, whether trailer 11's there or not, you still have that same concern with that power pole and that dumpster. Trailer number 11 doesn't change the fact that that power pole and dumpster is still there.
Yeah, but it sticks out another, like, 15 feet into the aisleway.
Right, but, here's my question then for you. We're 57.8 feet apart. You're recommending approval on the other trailer in space number, and the other space, and that's 58.9 feet in distance. So you have less than a foot change from one home to another. So that, to me, that's not a fair justification, because you're recommending approval on the other with a 1 foot difference.
Yeah, but I think what you're doing when you're figuring these figures, this is not a scale plan. And so you're coming in and jogging over and then jogging back. And we have to have straight access into the unit with that radius. And so you can't, here it looks like it's, straight, but it's not straight. You can see it on all the pictures. For you to get this 58.9 inches or whatever, you have to jog back over past these poles and stuff to get that distance.
Well, I just took home to home, end to end.
Right.
From space number 11 to 26, space number 28 to 12 is 58.9, and your two homes on the very end of the park are only 40.5. So any homes past the cul-de-sac anyhow, the apparatus has to go around the cul-de-sac and back their vehicle in. Whether space 11 home is there or not, the egress coming in and out does not change for the emergency apparatus. They still have to do the same thing whether home 11 is there or not. Come around the cul-de-sac, back their emergency vehicle in.
Yeah, I just feel it's getting too tight. I don't agree with you on that. And, one thing I could say too is I asked for a drawing, a scale drawing from the beginning. Show me, give me a plan what you're doing. I never received this till now, and all I ever got was Google images, and we need a scale drawing to know, okay, what are you doing? Where are the carports going? Where are the porches going? Where's the parking for each deal? And I asked you that several times for that, so.
I agree with that, you did.
Okay.
And that was just produced, as you can see, on 8/29/17. So that was just recent.
Chief Tully, I thought you had caught my eye when Mr. Peck was asking Robert Travis a question. And did you have any information to augment the answer to that question?
Well, yeah, the answer, especially here in the cul-de-sac area there, I mean, if we really look at the turning radius that they recommend is about 84 feet from center out to make a complete loop. However, dead-end fire department access roads in excess of 150 feet, which this one definitely is, will be provided with an approved provision for the turning around of fire apparatus no greater than every 500 feet and at the closed end. So technically, we don't have a way to turn around at the very end of this park, but we do have the ability there at that cul-de-sac. So that has been approved where that cul-de-sac is currently now. So when we get into figuring out exactly the radiuses and everything, the ultimate turning radius shall be approved by the authority having jurisdiction, which is the fire department. Okay, so at this time, that cul-de-sac area is big enough for us to turn around in. But if we really look at it from the standpoint of where we're at, every 500 feet there should be some way to turn around, and at the end of the park, there should be an approved area. So technically, we don't have one at the end of the park either. From this, where you're at here, north looking south, does not meet those requirements. But we've made some provisions to make sure that we keep that center cul-de-sac where it needs to be. Okay?
Thank you. Opponents may cross-examine staff. Are there any opponents who have signed up to oppose this variance request for space number 11? Now is your opportunity to ask your questions to either Chief Tully or Building Inspector Mr. Travis. Mr. Langford. Okay. Are there any other opponents? Okay. We will move on. Proponents. Proponents have been sworn in. Proponents make a presentation. Mr. Peck, please make your presentation on the variance on space number 11.
We can make this brief because it coincides with the space of 28 that we were talking about prior. Again, when we purchased or acquired this park, the layout was for 31 spaces. We were never told that there's going to be a variance based on new homes. If there's changes on that in the future, we would participate in those. We're asking the commission to work with us on these two homes that we've already spent a considerable amount of money with, moving these homes from Albuquerque into TRC, obtaining the adequate permits that were required, putting in upgraded utilities to allow for that. So We are just asking for your assistance in approving these so we can maintain a reasonable rent roll. We are giving these homes to individuals to live in for $550 a month. Very cheap for 2 and 3 bedroom homes. It's very low income housing. We're not getting rich off of this project. We are barely making it with all of our expense and overhead, and just looking at this as a long-term investment and trying to create low income housing. So I just ask that you approve our requests for our 2 variances, and we move on from this. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Commission, have any questions of Mr. Peck on the space number 11 request?
I have one
Commissioner
question.
Heschler.
Go ahead.
Mr. Peck, where does the vehicles park in relationship to that home, that would occupy that home?
Space number 11 would be on the other side of it, where the tree is at. That's kind of not a great view, but where you see the cul-de-sac, there's parking all the way up to the fence line past that house. That other one, there you go, would probably be the best view of it, right there. So you can pull all the way up past the tree and have parking there where the gate is. That shed is actually going to be given to space number 10, moved over. That propane tank is no longer there as well.
Commissioner Clark.
Mr. Peck, just correct me if I misunderstood, but my understanding is that you went in and talked to our building inspector, Mr. Travis, and Mr. Travis was wanting to work with you, and part of his wanting to work with you was to allow number 28 to go in if number 11 did not. Is that correct?
With me, no. I believe that conversation took place with Mr. Skinner and Mr. Travis. I never had that direct conversation. I think he could contest to that. That was never my position. That was, I think, a workaround that Mr. Skinner was trying to amicably work out with the town, but I had nothing to do with
Mr. Peck, if Mr. Skinner is your partner, are you two not supposed to be backing each other up?
We are, yes. I would agree to that.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Staff may cross-examine. Any questions for Mr. Peck? No. All right, opponents. On the variance request for space number 11, do you have any questions for Mr. Peck? Okay. Do you have any questions on this one? Okay, thank you. All right, we will go to opponents. Opponents may make a presentation. This is your opportunity to step forth and say why you are opposing this variance on space number 11 at the Whitehaven mobile home. Mr. Langdon. Yes, sir.
Again, thank you for council members. I oppose it because it is closer than fire code. I'm very adamant about maintaining safe distances in mobile home parks. Like I said before, I had a very good friend that died in one. And I don't like to see trailers crowded together. That's why I oppose it. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Mr. Langdon, Mr. Langdon, if you just 1 second. Commissioners, any questions of Mr. Langdon? Staff, any questions of Mr. Langdon? Proponents, well, that would be Mr. Peck. Any questions of Mr. Langdon? Okay, we will move on. That closes that portion of the public hearing. Now, on this one, we have an opportunity for the public. Is there anyone from the public who is not signed up as obviously you're not staff, I would know that, proponents or opponents want to make a statement? Seeing none, we are finished with the public hearing. Thank you very much for all those who participated in it. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, I believe Ms. Langdon was signed up and did want to speak on the opponent's side.
Space 11, yeah, well, they've all been sworn in. So I've been asking everyone who wanted to speak.
She was raising her hand, and you
Oh,
did not see it.
I beg your pardon. Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, she was raising her hand.
Right.
and he
Chief
was-
Tully's got broad shoulders. Ms. Langdon, sorry, go ahead. Didn't see you over there.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm going to be on a different end of this, what I feel. I am not against Jeremy and Jake having our trailer park. I'm not against what they're doing. But I've lived through two mobile homes that burned. It was not fun. and I barely got out with myself and nothing else. And one of them was after our 2 boys were born. And Clinton was gone, and we have no idea. They never did decide why the fire got started. Had our trailers been as close as the trailers that's trying to go in, we probably never would have got out, and others would have lost their lives as well. We've already had some fires there in that trailer park, as Chief Tooley can tell you, and it has taken lives. There was no way to get to them, and that's not having a close variance. So the majority of us in the trailer park, we're worried about our livelihood and our homes. We are seniors, and then what do we do when we have nothing?
Thank you. Does any commissioner have any questions? Ms. Lang, does a follow-up? Mr. Peck, do you have any questions? Ms. Lang, does a follow-up? Okay, thank you. And I apologize for not seeing you over there. Okay, we are finished with the public hearings. We are on to now G, ordinances, resolution, zoning, discussion, action, request for a variance on number 28 to be closer than 15 foot apart at Winter Haven Mobile Home Park at 2335 Broadway. Truth and consequences. Mr. Travis.
Okay, on space number 28, we've heard all the discussion on it, and I'll stand for any questions. Our recommendation was that if they would move number 11, we would allow number 28 there. But that's up to you, the commission, on what they want to do. We try to work with people, and we're trying to work with them to help them out, and so I'll stand for any questions or proceed from there.
Mayor.
Commissioner Clark.
Mr. Travis, I just asked the manager this, and you can find it fast enough. There's 2 ordinances. There was an old ordinance about mobile home parks, and then we made a new one just a few months ago. The old one, did that one also say 15 feet apart?
Yes, that has never changed.
That has never changed. It's always been 15 feet.
Always been 15 feet apart, yes.
So am I to understand that if Mr. Peck had done his homework and he had read even the old ordinance, he would have known and been aware that it's 15 feet before he did anything?
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions? I have a question, and I probably should have asked this to Mr. Peck, but I can't ask it to Mr. Peck right now, so Robbie, maybe you could help me out. The way I look at number 28, there is a lot of space as you look at the picture on the right side. It's open space. There was a carport kind of back here. Is it possible to be in compliance with the ordinance, to Commissioner Clark's point? Can that trailer be moved to 2.5 inches to the, whatever that is, east or west, and so it's legal and it becomes a non-issue? Is that, it's empty, Mr.
Yes.
Peck? I'm sorry. No, this is, I'm talking to Robbie right now. From what I heard, it's empty. Therefore, I don't know, it means probably a few dollars of expense on Mr. Peck and Mr. Skinner's part, but wouldn't that be the solution where everyone walks away maybe happy? Because now we're not violating, we don't have to deal with a variance because we're at 15 feet. I guess my question is, to the best of your knowledge, is there any physical structure preventing the moving of that trailer 2.5 feet that way?
No.
There is none.
None.
All would be the unfortunate additional financial burden on Mr. Peck and Mr. Skinner.
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. My question also is for Chief Tooley. Mr. Peck, I'm not going to call you, sir, so you might want to sit down. Thank you.
Is there another comment?
Excuse me. No, we are finished with the public hearing. My concern is the safety.
Yes, sir.
My concern is the safety of the occupants of the home and of our firefighters who volunteer and risk their lives to protect our citizens. And don't get basically paid for. So,
Correct.
what I heard, and correct me, sir, if I'm wrong, because I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. Are you, as a fire marshal, a fire chief, and representative of the volunteer fire department, comfortable with that trailer, number 28, staying where it is and not being moved, and us granting a variance?
Well, let me answer that. I would be more comfortable if it was to code and moved over, because the only thing that you have you have a carport there, which granted, if you're going to get a little closer to that, but the issue that we look at is life safety. Usually somebody doesn't live in the car during the night, so if moving that would make it more comfortable. Can we live where it's at now? You know, we would love to have more space. The more space we got, the easier it is for us. So my loaded question to you would be back, I would be more comfortable with it being able to move that trailer away from the other trailer and have more area between that, defensible area between those two.
Okay. And I am going to take the liberty, and Attorney Rubin, tell me if I am wrong. I would like to pose the question to Mr. Peck. Why can't number 28 be moved 2.5 feet to come in compliance, and this becomes a non-issue?
I think it's appropriate, because the reason why this really wasn't discussed really during the questions during the public hearing. So I think since we're raising this, I think Mr. Peck should have an opportunity to answer the question.
So, Mr. Peck, if you could please come up and address the commission. Tell us why you cannot move that trailer.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to respond to that, because it's a very critical point. Again, it changes the layout. There is utilities that are allowed for another spot there. So if you have us move another home, move that home over, we do not meet the new distance and we lose another spot. So it's no longer a 31 spot park like we were told when we met with Robbie in our due diligence period. It then becomes a 30 space park. So not only are we forced to move the home and have additional expense after we were given the consent to keep it there, now we will lose another space, ultimately losing additional income and ultimately increasing everybody's rent.
So is that, Mr. Peck, the only unoccupied space that there's no mobile home located in, or do you have other open spaces that are available to move a mobile home in?
There's 6 open spaces for mobile home and 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces for RVs currently.
Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Mayor,
Yes,
can I ask
Commissioner
Mr.
Clark,
Peck
Mr.
a
Peck.
question? While we're still talking about spaces and moving number 28, if we don't move number 28, and you tell those people to move their carport because you're going to put that 31st trailer in there, we're going to run into the same spacing distance with the new trailer, not meeting the 15 feet on either side, aren't we?
I don't believe so based on our measurements, because that's why it shows us an available space, a space.
Are we talking 15 feet on both sides plus the new size of these big things?
I believe the 15 feet, not taking in consideration any length, because there was no regulation that talks about the length of the home. It's only the distance from side to side. There is no TRC zoning requirements for the length of the home. Nothing. I just wanted to clarify that.
Commissioner Frankel, yes, sir.
To clarify, if trailer 28 was to move to the right 2.5 feet, would it be then on one of your other spots?
It would impede any other spot, ultimately changing the park demographic from 31 spaces to 30.
So there's the potentiality of another trailer being brought onto that space being 2.5 feet away from that trailer then? No, or just the lot itself?
The 15 on each side.
Okay, thank you.
If there wasn't an issue with the length, if that never changes on the length, there wouldn't be a problem.
I like it now. It's not working.
Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Ashley, yes, sir.
Mr. Peck, if you moved a 12-wide trailer in that space instead of a 14-wide, would that work?
In the space 28?
The space next to space number 28. I mean, you can vary the size of the next trailer that comes in, couldn't you?
There's truth behind that. I didn't consider that. I guess you're right. But the issue would be the monetary impact of moving a trailer after we've already been given consent. And after the consent was given, hooked up all utilities after a city employee gave us that green light. So there's a much bigger issue with that. All the utilities are in place. That home needs to be skirted and it just needs the final inspection.
I can correct you there. All the utilities weren't in, the sewer and water were connected, no gas, no electric, when we stopped this. And so, now they may have done it since then, but they shouldn't have until this was cleared up. But,
So, Mr.
you know,
Travis, if all the utilities were in, would that have changed your position that you have taken on this application? I mean, is that a game changer?
not really. I mean, it comes down to financial. It's going to cost to reblock it and scoot it over, you know, cut a piece of pipe, extend that piece of pipe, a water line, a gas line, those type of things. It's going to be, you know, a little bit of money. There's no doubt on that. Our biggest thing was, hey, we're trying to work with them. If you'll move out this other one, we'll let this one stay here. But, you know, when they came back for the variance on the other one too, you know, I'm like, you know, I don't know why you guys are doing that, you know. But anyways, I just don't, I don't think it's a big deal to scoot it over the 2 feet. But we did tell him that we would allow it here if he would move the other one off. And so, and I did get Lee's recommendation at that time, and his was, you know, at least 10 feet or more. If we can get more, better, you know. So that's what I made my basis off of, you know, so.
Okay, thank you.
Why don't I propose a recommendation then, and why don't we flop it?
All right,
What if
excuse me,
we
just-
move some?
Excuse me, this is not time for speeches. Are there any questions of staff on this? Because then I'm going to call for a motion. So this is our last chance to ask any concerns that you might have on this. I mean, I think we've really delved into it pretty deep, and I think it's time to let staff and let Mr. Peck know what the position of this commission is going to be.
Mayor, I'll make a motion.
Go ahead. Can you make the motion, please, Commissioner Clark?
My motion is to, as much as I dislike this motion, we have a very good building inspector, and he tries really hard to work with people. And you made a deal, and I want to back you up, Mr. Travis, and because you worked with our fire chief also. Now, my motion is that we grant the variance to number 28.
I have a motion by Commissioner Clark. I need a second. I will second that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. Carry, it doesn't carry, 3-2 vote. I would just like to say that maybe there's a lesson to be learned here as we move forward, and as our community grows, that we don't find ourselves possibly in these situations in the future.
You know, Mr. Mayor, since it's a 3-2 vote, you might want to articulate for the record who voted yea and nay.
Okay, for the record, Commissioner Clark and Commissioner Green voted yea, and the remaining commissioners voted nay. Okay. Good point, Attorney Rubin. G, ordinance resolution zoning number 2. Discussion action, request for variance on number 11 to be closer than 15 foot apart at Winter Haven Mobile Home Park, 2335 Broadway Street. Truth or consequences, New Mexico. Roger Travis, building inspector.
Okay, same thing on this one here, space number 11. Our staff recommendation would be that they not approve this one just because it is too tight and it does stick out to the roadway there. And so I'll stand for any questions.
Are there any questions from the commission? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
And your motion, Commissioner Clark?
My motion is that we do not permit a variance on number 11.
And I'll second that
I
motion.
have a motion by Commissioner Clark and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead on the request for a variance on slot number 11. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show that it carries unanimously. Thank you very much. The next item is number 3, discussion action, ordinance number 690 for publication, adding section 2/210, providing a procedure for the recusal of city board members. Attorney Rubin.
Okay, let's wait till
Yeah, let's wait for a second, let the folks.
Or a couple of seconds.
Okay. You take all the time you want, ma'am.
Don't worry, I do.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. All right, well, we can get started. As you know, we had before us at the last city commission meeting a proposed ordinance that provided a recusal procedure for the Public Utility Advisory Board. And that proposal was rejected by the commission, but I was tasked with the job of coming back with a new ordinance that would cover the recusal for all the boards. And that's what I have done. And what I also did, as you can see before you, I actually added some additional language I thought that might make the commission and the board members more comfortable with what I'm trying to accomplish here. So let me just kind of walk through this with you, if you don't mind. I start out the first sentence under purpose and intent with just a general statement that says the city commission recognizes that members of its boards, sections 2-111 through 2-370, perform a valuable service to the city, and such members generally serve in advisory capacity. Now, there were some concerns raised, again, when we're talking about the Public Utility Advisory Board ordinance, that by having this recusal procedure, that there was some attempt to maybe stifle discussion within the board itself. So I added a paragraph which I hope will address that concern. Let me read that aloud. The City Commission recognizes that its boards make important recommendations to the City Commission, and the City Commission desires to enact safeguards to ensure that the individual board members are able to conduct themselves without having improper considerations influencing their collective recommendations. Further, the City Commission finds it necessary to maintain the public perception that individual board members should only use their positions to advance the public interest and not to take actions for the primary purpose of directly enhancing said board members' financial interest or financial position. Therefore, using the Government Conduct Act described in 10-16-1 as a guide, the City Commission, the City Commission hereby promulgates the following. And then I have a paragraph which is substantially the same as what we had when we were talking about the Public Utility Advisory Board, except I adapted for all the boards. So, again, I'm trying to put everybody at ease here, and I think even the board members might appreciate what we're trying to accomplish, that once they get past the initial determination that, well, I can serve in an unbiased manner, then that actually kind of promotes even a freer discussion of the issues. And I think from the City Commission standpoint, you'll feel more comfortable that when you're getting a recommendation from a board, that you'll know that the recommendation was free of any undue influence. So, this is what I came up with.
Thank you. Other concerns, questions by the commission?
I have a comment.
Commissioner Clark.
Since I was the noisiest one about this, I want to thank the mayor, and I want to thank Attorney Rubin. The wording on this is very nice. I like the fact that every board is being considered, every person's being considered. And I appreciate Commissioner Heschler's comment by just putting in the Government Conduct Act, because it makes it very fair straight across the board. Anyway, I just wanted to make that comment made and say thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark, and I appreciate the time and energy that staff put in this, and even more important, Attorney Rubin, that you heard what we said and you delivered the goods. So thank you very much.
Good. Well, good luck. Let's hope it works out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Any further comments? Clerk Tanton, I need your help on this one. Do I need a roll call for publication or just a vote? Just as I thought, just a vote. Okay. So, I will stand for a motion to go to publication for ordinance number 690, adding section 2-210, providing a procedure for the recusal of city board members.
So moved, Mayor.
I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler. I need a second.
I'll second that
I have a
motion.
second by Commissioner Clark. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show it carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item is a request for, I'm out of order here. Oh, here we go. Request for appeal for resolution number 1516/17 related to 1308 Tin Street. Mr. Travis.
And Mr. Mayor, once again, we are following the professional process, so we might have to swear in and so forth of the witnesses.
So, Mr. Travis and Bobby Hanna, please, could they be sworn in?
Please raise your hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
All right, thank you. So this should go a little bit quicker. We just have one staff and we just have one proponent. So let us start with staff's presentation.
Okay. This is Resolution 151617, and they want to appeal it, and they originally appealed it within around the first of the year. And we tried to work with them and let them go ahead and either clean up the property or sell it to somebody that could clean it up. This was passed on 12/13/16. We've met with the owner more than 3 times, giving them more time to get the property cleaned up and repaired or to sell property to someone who can do this. Staff recommendation is that we set a final deadline of 30 days. If not sold or repaired and cleaned up, the city will proceed with demolition. We have their appeal letter and then the resolution in your packet there, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commission to Mr. Travis?
You know, Mr. Mayor, I know it's not really appropriate for me to ask questions, but maybe just to complete a record here. I'm looking, I see the resolution referred to in Exhibit 1. Do we have that as part of the record?
Yes.
Okay, it's already been put in the record?
Yes.
And I know you also mentioned there were some photographs at one time?
Yes.
And that's part of the record also?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
No questions from the commission, if I'm looking at that, okay? Proponents may cross-examine staff. Ms. Hanna?
Hi, I'm Bobby Hanna. My only question is, how can you guys set, or he set a 30-day deadline to sell a property? I can't make people come up with money. If I could do that, we wouldn't be here. You did give me the opportunity to sell, and that has always, we did discuss other options, but selling is what I have decided on. If you guys just destroy it and you guys take the land, and I get nothing, and I already have, there's a loan against it, why, I don't understand the time limit.
Give you. So our ultimate goal is not to take land or take your property or demo it. Our is to get you in compliance.
Mm-hmm.
So our goal is get the property cleaned up, get it, in shape that it can be at least in some kind of visible good shape, ordered, something done. That's our goal. If you can't do, we've given you 8 months. If you can't.
I cannot do that because I can't afford that.
Okay. And our problem is we can't keep letting it go down the road. Something has to be done. One of the concerns that I have is that you set too high of a price on the property to sell it. And so I don't think you've got any offers on it, and that, so it has to be at least, if you're going to sell it, you got to do it at a reasonable, so it will sell, or get it cleaned up. And that's all we're asking is that, hey, can we?
All right. I'm only asking $25,000 for the property.
Ms. Hanna, do you have any more questions of Mr. Travis?
No.
Okay, thank you. Now, we will turn to proponents. This is your opportunity now to make your case to the commission.
Okay. I'm not asking too much for it. I'm asking $25,000. That's saying that both of the lots are worth $15,000. And that's all that I'm asking because the house isn't worth anything. So I don't think I'm being unreasonable in my price. I just don't think there's a lot of people with money in TRC right now. Now, do I get to question you, or?
No, this is your time to make your case on why this should be approved. I mean, this is your time.
Well, I think it should be
Inform the
approved because
commission.
I should be given an option to get a good price for it.
All right, so, any commissioners have any questions? I'd like to start on this, if I may, because I didn't write the question down, and I'll probably forget it. How long has it been on the market to be advertised to sell, and where are you advertising to sell it in?
I'm only advertising with signs outside the home and word of mouth because I can't afford to put it through a realtor. And those signs were put up maybe 10 days after I filed that appeal.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Randall.
I would ask how you came up with the asking price of $25,000. Did you receive an appraisal for your property?
No, I can't afford that either. I looked at what lots were going for in other realtor places throughout town, like, they come out in the back of newspapers and stuff. And it's well below what the same size lots would be.
And how would you
sold for.
determine the value of $15,000 for a lot in your neighborhood?
Well, it's a nice neighborhood. The same size lots are going for more in not very nice neighborhoods. So I think it's not unfair.
Do you have a picture of the property, Robbie? I'd like to add to the record that I'm a newly licensed real estate broker this year, and I have been working with properties in and around your neighborhood, and I recently just sold a lot with a mobile home on it on Ledge Street. It was $8,500 for the lot with a mobile home. That was a sale that occurred within the last 30 days. I just want to make you aware of that. No further questions?
Any questions, Commissioner Hessel?
Mr. Senator, what was your asking price for the property?
25?
And are you taking into account the price that it's going to cost someone to clean up that property to make it inhabitable?
No, because that's just the price to pay the lien that I have against the house.
And so you have a lien against the house for $25,000?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, at this time, we're only asking that you go in and clean up the property, correct?
Yes.
We have no liens or anything else on the property, so if she was to get some friends or family or people in the community that could get together and help her clean up that property, then this would kind of go away for right now, correct?
Correct.
I have a
But
question.
it is, let me give you the rest of the picture because
And then that would give her more time, other than the 30 days, for it to be on the market. So in reality, we're just asking at this point in time for her to go in and clean up the property and make it decent, right?
And there's an infestation problem there with mice and rats and things like that, and so.
But that could all be taken care of if they did it properly. Okay.
So, Ms. Hanna, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm going to make an assumption, no one's living in the house right now?
No.
Okay. And to follow up on Mayor Pro Tem's point, which is right on the nail, but did not I hear you say you did not have the money to clean it up?
No. It needs a new roof and a new ceiling.
No, Mayor Pro Tem was not talking about a roof and a ceiling. She's
That's what
talking
he's
about-
talking about.
Well, I thought there's violations about an unsafe building, but also there's a violation about the look of the property. So maybe, Mr. Travis, you could expand, and so, what was Ms. Hanna cited for? How does that citation read?
My assumption is, again, I'm not handling this matter for staff, but I'm looking at the resolution. That's why I was mentioning Exhibit 1 seems to would have articulated the issues, isn't that?
And Attorney Rubin, actually, Manager Fuentes just pointed out, evidently the citation is, it's a dangerous building.
Yeah.
And so is a little bit more than cleaning up a yard or pulling your weeds. Am I correct? in
That's
that?
correct,
Thank you,
yeah.
Manager Fuentes.
Thank you.
So the violation included, but not necessarily limited to, those items listed in the inspection report. And then you talk about certified letter was sent and stuff like that. So what I'm really hearing, and correct me, Ms. Hanna, if I am wrong, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, that the only way that this could be satisfied would be by you selling it. Is that correct?
Yes, because I
Okay.
can't afford to
So
make
if
it
Mr. Travis, and Mr. Travis, tell me if I'm wrong, I thought I heard you say 30 days.
Correct.
Would you consider following Commissioner Frankel's suggestion to price that property at a realistic going market value, not what we would like to receive? I understand that, but what's going to happen in the real market world, that might change the dynamic and the picture of why you're here. And it would seem like, unfortunately, you don't have the money or the friends who have the skill to put that house back in shape. No one's nibbling at $25,000. So I think your only alternative, if Mr. Travis is talking about a 30-day extension, is to maybe find a couple dollars, put an ad in the Herald, put an ad in the Sentinel, because obviously drive-by is not doing it, and see what happens in a month. And I don't know, not speaking for anybody, but maybe we might want to consider extending that period of time just a little bit, maybe 45 days, give you just a little bit more time to sell that building. Otherwise, it is not fair to your neighbors and to the community to have a piece of property within our city limits that is such a safety hazard as that building is. So
Mayor.
that's my Commissioner Clark.
Ms. Hannah, did I hear you say that you owe $25,000? You got a note for 25 on this property?
Yes,
And you're trying to sell it for 25?
yes,
So you're gonna net zero?
yes.
My point is this: why are you even trying to sell it?
Because I can't afford to fix it.
Why don't you give it back to the bank?
Just walk away from it.
Just walk away from it.
That doesn't solve my problem.
Well, selling it doesn't solve your problem either, because you get out nothing. The question to you is, list it with a realtor, put a couple extra dollars on it. If it doesn't sell in 30 days, they get nothing. You don't have to put anything up front, do you, Commissioner Frankel? It's commission only if it sells. If it doesn't sell, you're still getting nothing anyway. It's a nothing or nothing, but at least you're selling it. You might protect your credit a little bit. But I would suggest that you put it on the market with a realtor who can put it out there if they will take it for more than $25,000, so that covers their costs, or there may be a deficit going to the bank. But it is an easy way to just take that pressure off of you, is to just hand it over to a real estate company. That would be my suggestion.
All right, so are there any further questions?
Well, I guess what I'm thinking about legally, I'm trying to really figure out really where you want to go. You passed a resolution back on December 13, 2016, and you already determined it was a dangerous building.
Right.
And of course, there was some time limits put in there already. I guess that, that was even before the resolution. And what happened is I then filed an appeal, and you've heard the appeal. So I guess you need to determine what you're going to do with the resolution. Are you going to just stay the resolution, or are you going to say, no, we're going to just deny the appeal and go forward with the resolution? But I think you have to deal with the resolution.
Well, if we have a resolution here, and let's say that she just walks away from this or isn't making any payments, and the bank takes it over anyway, we've got a resolution, then we got a foreclosure. Right, Mr. Travis?
And then our issue is with the bank.
We don't have an issue with the bank. We don't want the house. Let the bank have it.
I understand, but we still have a house that's in violation of our codes. Is that
How does
correct?
that work then?
Who
Yeah,
cares who owns the property?
We can go after, but I don't think it's a bank that has the lien, am I correct?
No.
It's
Yeah,
a
so
person, well, that person could foreclose on it too, so you're not really making payments then?
Yes, I am.
You are making payments on
Yes.
this? Okay.
So any questions, or seeing none, I will stand for a motion. I heard Mr. Travis mention 30 days, to set a deadline of 30 days, and if not sold or repaired and cleaned up, the city will proceed with demolition.
I so move as Mayor Green stated.
Okay, so I have a motion, I need a second. Oh, I beg your pardon. I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second. I have a second by Commissioner Frankel. Any further discussion? I do have one question, Commissioner Frankel. Is 30 days a realistic time in our market, in TRC, to attempt to try to sell a house?
The only deal that you could do in 30 days is if somebody was to make a cash purchase on that. And 30 days is the minimum time frame that you'd be able to close the home in. More realistic timeline is around 6 weeks to close on a home. But I'd also refer to Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead, who has experience with title.
It just depends on the nature of the home and what it looks like. And
I don't think you're going to be able to get a...
Mayor Green, can I change that
Absolutely.
and change it to 45 days? I mean, that would give her a little more time. Again, like I suggested, you know, if you could get friends and family and people that could help you get in there and clean it up and do a little repair to make it, you know, where that the neighborhood, where it would be, you know, convenient for the neighborhood to look at and, you know, meet their standards. And then that would give you a little bit longer to sell it instead of the, you know, having to just come up and sell it right away. I mean, we're trying to help you in every way that we can, but you also have to help yourself. Okay?
All right, so I have an amended motion by Mayor Pro Tem to move the deadline up to 45 days. Do I have the second on the amendment? I have the second on the amendment by Commissioner Frankel, who changed his. Is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead?
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Esler?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
Aye.
Honorable Joshua Frankel?
Yes.
Thank you. It carries unanimously. We wish you the best of luck in the next 45 days. You're welcome. Next item is H2, discussion, action, possible closure for the pool in the winter. Manager Fuentes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners, at our last commission meeting on September 13th, Millie McLeod spoke during public comment about the suggestion to close the pool during the winter to save money in order to do the resurfacing of the pool. I know Destiny Mitchell commented on that today at public comment. I did ask Tracy to reach out to the state, to speak to Christie, who we deal with for permitting, and she did get confirmation from Christie Zeal from New Mexico Environment Department, stating to us basically that we do need to resurface the pool. So definitely a closure of this pool during the winter months would not only help us save money, but also anyways help us to kind of schedule this project. Tracy has already been getting quotes on the resurfacing of the pool, so it's something that we'll need to work on fairly quickly. So if the commission chooses to proceed forward with the closure, then again, we'll definitely have that savings there to work with. We'll have to look for other funding as well, and we'll bring it back to the commission for a budget adjustment if needed. And also, you know, we do have some staff positions at this time that are not filled, so obviously we won't fill those positions. So with that, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, again, we put this item on the agenda because it is an issue a policy matter that we have to be approved by the commission.
Thank you, Manager Fuentes. Questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Mayor
my
Pro Tem.
question is currently we do have some staff members. What happens to their positions and what will they do for the few months that we're not closed to save money to resurface their
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead, so the employees that we currently have will definitely have other work that needs to be done cleaning up at the pool. If we do have other duties in other departments that they may be assigned to help other departments, so we definitely will be using them But they will also be part of the project in the closure and the emptying of the pool and all of that. So they will be working during that time that the pool is closed.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Manager Fuentes, Commissioner Heschler? Yes, sir.
Manager Fuentes, what is the duration, what does winter mean? How many months is that?
Don left at this time, but I believe when we put the cover up, I believe we took it down sometime in April.
So the entire season?
The entire season, yes.
And approximately how much in savings would that be?
Mr. Mayor and Commissioner Heschler, I believe our finance director did run some numbers, and we are looking at least somewhere in the neighborhood, if not a little bit higher, of $30,000, not more, that could be saved. Because again, we're not going to be running heating for 24/7 at that facility, and we're not going to be filling some of the vacant positions. So that's what we estimate it could be, some of the savings, if not a little bit more. And again, that's where due diligence will have to come in and figuring out, okay, where do we get the remaining balance? So we'll have to come back to the commission for that, if approved.
Any questions? Commissioner Franco.
Am I to understand that the $30,000 per month savings, that money would go towards the resurfacing?
That's correct.
And I would ask that if we were to consider closing the pool for the winter, that we have a set date where we guarantee that we're going to be open by, like, May 5th, for example. I'd like to have that date sort of set in stone in case we run into any unforeseen problems. We have enough time to address them, so we don't run into a situation where we're needing to close an additional season.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Franco, I think, until we get the actual company or expert to come in and tell us what the timeframe will be, we'll have a better idea. I couldn't tell you right now what that, date in concrete would be, because I don't have that information. I would have to, I'll have to come back to the commission and kind of give the commissioners an update on what that date would be. I would feel more comfortable doing that because then at least I would have the input of the company that we would contract with to go in and do the work. Right now, we don't have that.
I would ask that we would shoot for the first part of May as a goal.
Okay.
I have a couple questions.
Commissioner Clark.
I'm looking for the swimming pool on here, but it seems to me that the utilities were running anywhere from $6,000 to $8,000 a month during the winter time to keep that bubble up. So that means the bubble's coming down. So that means more than $30,000 if we're closed for 6 months, right? Then I also, you know where they are? I also remember talking to somebody after Christy and I had met a couple of years ago when we started looking to building a new swimming pool, and we thought we could do it for somewhere around $1 million. It didn't turn out to be that. That's why we have no new swimming pool, and we're keeping this one open. This is a really cool old pool. So if we're going to keep it, we do need to resurface it. But my other thing is that I do remember that the resurfacing was going to be anywhere around $90,000 to $100,000.
That's correct.
And that was the big deal, is where are we going to come up with that $100,000 to resurface a pool? Could we have a new pool for that? So if we're going to be looking at resurfacing this pool, then we've got 20 more years on this. We ought to be looking at heat exchangers so we don't have the expense of putting a bubble on. A heat exchanger could keep hot water in there during the winter time, or use the hot mineral water during the winter time if we needed to, and then convert it to the cold water, fresh water during the summer. But there are other things that we could look at for this pool during that period of time. What do we got? Did you find that?
Well, here's the budget, Mr. Mayor and Commissioner Clark. So right now, the focus and the scope of work that we're looking at accomplishing here is just simply the resurfacing of the pool. If we start adding on additional items, then it becomes a more complex project that would require more time or possibly more funding. So I just want to bring that up. Ultimately, the commissioners need to give us direction on specifically what we would like to accomplish with during this closure period, if approved. But again, right now we were just focusing on the resurfacing part.
Well, that's where I'm thinking is we're gonna do this and then we're gonna get back into the $8,000 a month with the bubble on there for the winter time. Why aren't we looking at trying to operate this more economically in the same time period so that the monies that we're gonna have, that $800,000, we're saving, 40 or 50 now, but we'll save that, maybe that same amount next year, and that will have taken care of paying for the pool.
The bubble will always be there.
We don't like the bubble.
No, I know, but, and the reason, Commissioner Clark, is, the bubble itself is not just to keep things warm inside, but it's also just for the elements on the outside, obviously, during the winter.
I understand.
So we will always see, even if we were to do a different heat exchange for the water itself, we
We'd still have the $8,000.
we will still have to put up the structure every winter.
Any further questions, Commissioner?
What is the expected life of that bubble?
I believe when we acquired it, we were given 20-year. However, Don did mention to me when I asked that question recently, it is showing signs of wear and tear from the taking down and putting up and taking down. So I'll ask Renee if I know Alamogordo had a similar structure.
They did, and they recently took it down altogether.
How long did it last? Do you remember?
Last I knew it was up for 18 years.
Yeah. So even though they say it's 20, it all depends on, the weather, of course, and the sun and the beating that it gets, so.
But that didn't mean everything was wrong with it when they did take it down, because that was a decision they made.
I think we still have 10 years left at least, or?
Oh, yeah, definitely, yes.
All right, thank you. Manager Fuentes, I'm going to go a different direction. I'm going to talk about quality of life. I'm not going to talk about money. I'm going to talk about Christie saying that by February, cut bait or you're out of the business of swimming pools. I would like for us to find out, number one, what the cost is, what the time frame is to pump out the water. I don't know what we do with the water because I'm assuming it's got chlorine in it. If we can dump it into an international waterway, I don't know. Maybe Commissioner Clark knows. How long it takes to dry out the pool, how long it takes to do the fix. To me, to take away something, and I understand we're up against a deadline. The state has come in and said, if you don't do it, you don't have a swimming pool. I get it, I understand. However, we are a senior community, and to your credit, sir, I know you find money where it doesn't exist. And this is not a $12,000 purchase. This is a big deal. I would like for us to explore the use of lodger's tax, because I think if we had to, I could certainly make a case for a swimming pool being a tourist-related facility and/or attraction. I know for a fact it is used by our guests that don't have the motels that don't have spas, and who's got a swimming pool, I think, except maybe Comfort and Travel Lodge up there and Holiday Inn. I would like to, rather than just say, let's close this puppy for 6 or 7 months, because we have absolutely no alternative to offer our seniors and the people who utilize that pool. I would like to have the idea of tasking staff, as sir you started to mention, do due diligence, get the information, get the numbers, get the time frame, and then come back to the commission in a timely manner so we have an alternative to talk about, rather than we're going to close it for 7 months and that's it. I think that's an easy way out for us, but I think it kind of punishes the community with them knowing that we haven't turned the page and explored every possibility. We know it's going to have to be closed. I guess the question is, I like to truncate that period of time. So that's just my thinking. I know that everyone else has a different thought, but that's where I'm coming from. Commissioner Franklin.
One thing that comes to mind on that is if we were to get the pool fixed and refinished in a timely manner, then we would still be tasked with putting up the bubble for a very short period of time. So that was
Agreed.
a consideration.
I understand. I mean, this is a very complex question, you know, and I wish we had 100 grand just sitting there, we could just do it, you know, but obviously it's gonna take magic.
Mayor, I have another
Yes.
concern.
Commissioner Clark.
If we do get shut down by the health department, there may be more than just resurfacing to open it back up.
So what you're hearing, Commissioner Clark, you're saying is that whether we open it up past February or not is a different issue.
She's
We
gonna
gotta
close
fix
it the date
by
that-
February 1 or whatever that date is.
We have to fix it before she closes us down, because then we may need to meet some other standards on that swimming pool that have been grandfathered in.
Right. Oh, I
That could be a
understand.
big problem.
Okay.
So just keep that in the back of your mind also.
Okay. Well, it's not my mind, it's the will of the commission. I'm just expressing my desire to explore every possibility before we pull the plug, which we're going to do anyway, but whether we're going to pull the plug for 7 months or whether we're going to pull the plug for 2.5 months, I think that's the question really that we're dealing with. And how do we fund it if it's over a shorter period of time? And to Commissioner Frankel's point, you can think about that actually, is putting the bubble back and the wear and tear and staff and getting the volunteers and that whole deal. Sorry, thank you. So, I think, does anyone else have anything to say before we move on? Okay, here. Commissioner Ashley, you look like you were just not ready to say something. Good. Okay, so I will stand for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to suggest that before we actually move to close the pool, that we task staff to look at all the options that can be taken so that we can bring this pool up to standards without having to close it for 6 or 8 months, and to meet the, the time frame for the state to come in as February. And I ask that this be put on the next agenda, and hopefully the information that we're requesting can be brought back to us at that time, and then we can make a decision of where we're going to go with it.
Okay, I have a very short motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. But she got it all out there, and she got it all in. I need a second.
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Clark. Is there any further discussion?
I would just like to say that, it seems to me that if we were to be able to close for the months of November, December, January, and February, that within those 4 months, we'd have the potential to generate $120,000 in excess revenue, and if the pool resurfacing is somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000, that would cover the costs. So I'd like to look at those 4 months, ample time to do the project and cover the cost of the project.
Okay, any further discussion?
The other discussion is I'd just like to make sure that in Mayor Pro Tem White's long motion is that she did bring up the health department, and I also think that we need to contact them and find out what happens if we do close it after the February date, and what happens if we get it done by the February date. Do you understand? I mean, what ramifications would the health department give us if we're not done at this pool in February?
But if we had started the process,
So something like that.
Right.
What exactly
If
is
they
she
show
going to
intent
expect?
on our
If we're
part,
working on it and it's not completed by February, what's going to happen
right,
to us?
yeah,
So I think you're asking, Mayor Whitehead, is that we look at everything before we're
Just
given.
look at the whole ballpark and come back with information that can get us to where we need to be without having to either close it for a long period of time or to bring it up to specifications where we're in compliance with the state and everyone with it be in compliance with it.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, I think the intent and the recommendation that was suggested was to close the pool. But I think the real question is, at some point, I think soon, because time is changing, it was really not putting up the structure itself. It's not so much closing it today or tomorrow or next week. It was closing it for that winter period when the structure would have been placed up. That was the time when we would have closed the pool. And I don't typically know when that is. I think it just really depends on the weather as it starts really changing. But definitely next week we'll do our best to come back with more information, and then we'll go from there. on the extent of the closure. But I think that was, when it was recommended, it's really not putting up the structure, and which essentially would shut it down.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you for that. Any further discussions, points made? Hearing none, I will stand for, well, we had the motion, and we had a second, so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show it carries unanimously. Next item, appointment of a minimum pool representative, Manager Fuentes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners, in your packet, again, as the commission approved the JPA with the Sierra County, Village of Williamsburg, for the minimum pool at Elephant Butte Lake. In the JPA does require each entity to appoint a representative to the JPA for the effort of seeking administrative or legislative support for the state and federal agencies to establish that minimum pool. So on the agenda, it is for commissioners for consideration and appointment of that representative to the JPA.
Thank
Mayor,
you. Yes.
I'd like, if there's any discussion, I've spent an awful lot of time working on this minimum pool thing. However, I think that probably one of the best people on our commission to spearhead this would be Commissioner Heschler, if he would consider it. And I would be very happy to sit down and talk with you and tell you what I know up to date that might be helpful. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
Commissioner Clark, is that a motion?
Yes.
And I would gladly second that motion. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Heschler, you have no choice but to accept if we vote in the positive. This is not a democracy, sir.
Mayor, I was going to volunteer anyway, so thank you very much.
So, all those, and thank you, Commissioner Clark. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show it carries unanimously. And Commissioner Heschler, thank you for your volunteerism. We appreciate it. And I guess you'll be going up, but you're going back to the park again.
I'm going back.
You're going back to the park.
I think I know everybody there, so.
I'm quite sure that's it. Discussion item, we're on H4, benefits to the community for the new law enforcement complex. This is just an update, it is not a vote. I put it on the agenda because I received a lot of phone calls after the bond issue that we authorized, and that there's a gentleman in the community, Mr. Ron Fenn, who is exercising his right to circulate a petition. And I had a lot of phone calls about not only the petition, but also what was the motivation? Why did the commission vote the way it did? And can you kind of expand what's the benefits for it? So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to give the commissioners an opportunity to talk about their vote. It was a unanimous vote. And if we have any questions, obviously we have the chief here. So I will open it up for anyone who wants to start.
I have some comments.
Commissioner Clark.
And I thank you for putting this on, because I've had several people ask me questions too. Why are you just unanimously voting for something and we don't know your thinking? And so I would like to put out some of my personal thinking as a commissioner, and it's in dollars and cents and contribution to the community. And I've had an opportunity to speak with the chief on this also, and the manager. But one of the first things that came to mind is we have a current obligation with animal control of the veterinarian complex, where a total of $10,000 a month goes into services for our animal control. You ready?
Yep.
Okay. So that being said, with our own animal control, knowing we have to do that because the veterinarian has... Push it hard.
Thank you, Suzanne.
So we immediately have $120,000 with the county, et cetera, coming into our police department, which is far more than the $107,000 a year that we're going to be paying to service this note. We also have a current mortgage of $1,264 a month on a current building where our police department is housed, with a balance of $140,000. This can be rolled over into the new one. We could even sell that building if possible. Possibly, $200,000, $250,000, $300,000 that would go against this new complex. We also have, according to the police chief, the ability to detain and dispose petty misdemeanor arrests. I'm reading his words. Chief, if you wouldn't mind helping me out with this. Where we would be able to do a lot of these on-site as opposed to sending them out, with another $16,000 savings. So we're looking at 120 plus 15, 135, 145, $151,000 that this would stay in our police department, and we're looking at paying out 107. So we're actually putting more money into the police department by having this new complex. That's an interesting way of looking at it. Where, you hear argument, well, some of this is tax money. Well, this is more money that's going into our department now, and I find that pretty remarkable. And that we will have the employment then at the animal shelter instead of somebody else having that, which is good for our people. And I also have another list of things, Chief, that I'm going to read very quickly and then ask if you could expand on them a little bit. But there are services that we will be able to provide to our community that we currently don't provide. Some youth services, a Youth Explorer program, Police Activities League, volunteer program, reserve officers, crime prevention, emergency management, emergency operations center, and parental assistance in dealing with minors. And I had a chance to talk to the chief about this one. That is very exciting to me, if there's something that can be done with the families and the minors prior to them getting into trouble. So if there's anything there, Chief, that I can ask you to expand upon for the public more than anything else, because apparently we all know we want this.
Youth services is something that's drastically needed here, and youth services encompasses quite a bit. It could be a mentoring program. Youths that are caught, say, ditching school for some other issue like that, now they end up in muni court. We work hand in hand with the municipal court. It becomes a mentoring program where we have them on Saturdays, and say we have a senior in our city that is, say, hey, their weeds are getting big. We can commit to these projects and assist them on weekends. It gives young folks a sense of accomplishment, and that's contagious, and it's needed. The Explorer program is for high excelling youth in our community. We already have 2 student interns from the high school working at the police department. It's been a great program. It's actually getting a lot of steam. We're getting more and more requests for it. We have one of the biggest assets we have in this community is the life experience of our seniors. And I've spent quite a bit of time with them, and I have to tell you, we are experience rich, and we really need to create a volunteer program to assist us with some of these other programs that we need, and capitalize on that experience and the willingness of these folks to want to come out and help. Reserve officers, that goes without saying. We can double our field forces. It's a low impact on our budget, and it puts another police officer in a vehicle. I've met with the state over the training requirements. We would like to move forward on that because it does. And that's why, if you notice in the new building, there's a locker room for that specific reason. And for all of us, actually, sometimes we deal with stuff, we need to shower before we go take that stuff home with us. So that's a big one. Crime prevention. Everyone that that's a victim of a crime in this community, they take the report, and because we don't have either the staffing or really the space to do anything, those folks should be getting a call, a telephone call. Hi, I'm a volunteer. I work with the Truth and Consequences Police Department. We have reviewed a police report that you made regarding this. Do you have any further information to assist us in solving this crime? No. Okay, thank you. Can we come out to your house and do a survey for crime prevention to hopefully prevent you from being victimized again in the future? That is a big deal, and Where I came from, our volunteers participated in the crime prevention program. They go out and they do on-site inspections, not only for homes, but businesses. Another one is, we have people that aren't here 12 months out of the year. It would be nice. Hey, can you give us a call? Give us your emergency contact info. While you're out, we're going to go check your property. If we have a problem, you can call us. If you have any questions, you can call us. And, I mean, it's just another service that we've added that makes life here a lot more pleasant and desirable, especially for somebody that retires and maybe lives between two areas. Emergency Command Center, you know, that location is on high ground. It is a perfect place. If something unfortunate was to occur where we needed to be somewhere where we could stage emergency services coming in, start mitigating a response to a disaster, operate a command post, and have all our city leaders there that need to make those crucial decisions, especially in the financial area, at the time the emergency is occurring and we're responding to it, that in itself is huge. So we do need that. A big one, and I agree, is the parental assistance. In 1996, I was tasked with developing a youth program for the city I worked for. I didn't want to do it. I said, I'm a crime fighter. I honestly, I'm going to tell you, I didn't want to do it. That experience has become one of the best in my entire professional life. We went out we fundraised, but this program gave parents the tools to effectively deal with minors who are just demonstrating self-destructive behavior, whether they're stealing cars, smoking dope. And when you tell a parent, they're saying, I'm ready to pull my hair out, CYFD is involved because they're concerned that my parental ability is lacking. And when you can tell that parent, stick with me for 11 weeks, and you'll never have an argument with that kid again, and they're going to do everything you tell them. Every time they say, oh, you have never met my kid. And guess what? At the end of that program, they're like, I got it. I get it. And you know, when you can give a parent those tools, it really gives some tools for success for some young folks that might be going down a different path. And then one of the other things that I'd like, and with the space we definitely would do, and that would be a Citizens Academy. Maybe hold 1 or 2 classes a year to give our citizens the inside look on how we deal with evidence, patrol operations, all those other things, Detective Bureau, and give them some insight on what we do every day, and more importantly, the laws and the restraints that we have on us, so that they can understand what we do, how we do it, and have an appreciation for how the justice system works in the state of New Mexico. And I believe that would be very beneficial to the community. I would like to capitalize on one thing. The Police Activities League. We had one where I was at. We would end up getting a nonprofit status for that. It gives us and opens up the avenues for fundraising, like your pool that we're talking about right now, our pool for the city. It would allow us to partner with other entities within the city, whether it's a private business, a karate studio, whether it's a golf club, whether it's a baseball team, and we can partner with them for youth services. The police department, they would obviously have an officer there and involved in the program, whatever it would be. Whether it's a swimming coach, right now we just hired an officer that's a semi-pro BMX rider, and he's asked to take on the task of redoing the track. And he wants to put on clinics for some of our young kids to go out and ride. You know what? That's exactly what this is about. And that's a few of the services that we're looking forward at implementing. We just don't have the room, and adding another 300 to 500 square feet back there, the storage is not what we need. We need the area to sit down and train. We need the area to sit down and bring the community and interact with them in a training environment, whether it be Citizens Academy, parental assistance, and so forth. I stand for any questions.
Thank you.
The only other thing that I wanted to say is there's something very special about using the National Guard Armory. And that putting a police department in a National Guard armory kind of is consistent with the use where, you know, if we put like administration or something in there, it's not quite as contiguous. So I think there's some kind of neat deal about that.
I would like to add something on that. I wish I could take all the credit for everything that's the idea. This was started before I arrived here. Great concept. The idea of getting the building in itself was given to us by the state with the vision of that it would at some point become a law enforcement complex. When I first walked in that building, I actually looked at it and said, really? And then when the structural engineer looked at it, he says, no, this is a great building. It's going to last longer than you will. But what really drove it home is when I talked to some of the veterans that have served out of there. And it really became apparent that that building represented, it's an iconic part of this community. It served as a basis for community service for our state, nation, and our community. We have people that went into military service, some that never came home, paid the ultimate sacrifice abroad. And we have members of this community that are so proud of, this man's one of them right here, proud of the fact that they served in the National Guard right there. And what an appropriate way to continue that level of public service through that iconic building. And I tell you, I've seen the drawings. It's going to be incredible.
Thank you,
Thank
Mayor.
you, Chief. Anyone else like to jump in? If not, I'd like to go next, and maybe you guys want to jump in or not. So, Chief, how long have you been in law enforcement, may I ask?
January will be 32 years.
A little bit of experience.
A little bit, yes, sir.
Okay. So I just want to go back and just talk about how this came to be. It came to be for some of the reasons you heard Commissioner Clark talk about, you heard the Commissioner, the Chief talk about. And what we did is back in 2011, we passed a 0.25% of GRT increase in our gross receipts tax, which our citizens pay. But I would remind you, you don't pay it on food, you don't pay it on drugs, and you don't pay it on housing. So we realized that because the police department was underfunded, and we were basically a training center for a lot of other communities in New Mexico. They would come in, we would train them, they'd go to the academy 5-6 months, whatever it is, Chief, and then all of a sudden they go into municipal leagues, jobs available, and we lose them to Angel Fire, and we lose them all over the place. So I find it interesting that the person who is circulating the petition since 2011 has never, ever, ever said one word. Not boo, not questioned how the discretion, that money was being spent by the police chief. The money was given for public safety with not a lot of stringent rules, because 32 years certainly trumps 0. That's for darn sure. So we're going to be faced with an election. That election is going to run us anywhere between $8,000 to $10,000. And yet this gentleman stands here and rails at us about how we don't spend money wisely. This appears to me to be a personal vendetta of one person against the city. Where has he been for the last 5 years? And what does the last 5 years mean in relationship to GRT? This is a public document, it's right out of our budget. The police department, since we instituted this 1/4 of GRT, that has amounted to $1,476,000. I'm the only commissioner, I believe, who is up here who voted for that 0.25%, not because they wouldn't have voted for it, but they just weren't serving at that particular time. And yet, for 5 years, that light has been shut off. And all of a sudden, for some particular reason, because one citizen doesn't think that the police chief, the police department and this commission has done due diligence to do something that is going to benefit not only the department, but the citizenry of our community and the quality of life of our community, I personally cannot add 2 and 2 and come up with 4. Our police department, just a couple months ago, was recognized as the 14th, TRC, through our police department, is the 14th safest city in New Mexico. We didn't come up with those numbers. Those numbers were coming up with another organization, a statewide organization that runs these numbers. We're 14th out of 106. Can anyone tell us that our police department is not serving our public? And it's their money. This commission votes to give them every year that 1/4%. And let me tell you, folks, I am not running for election this year or next year, but I support our police department. I would never, ever, ever, as long as there's a breath in my body, vote to take away something from a department that has justified the use and the reason for that 1/4%, and no one has ever complained. I don't know what that gentleman is telling people out on the street. It is his right to circulate that petition. But if there are enough signatures signed, it triggers an election, which, as far as I'm concerned, is a total waste of money. It is the police department's money to decide, because the citizens supported our decision back in 2011 to 2012, that they agreed that this was the right thing to do. And 5 years later now, it's the wrong thing to do? 5 or 6 years later now, that the police department doesn't have enough, let me rephrase that. The police department can't make decisions that are in the best interest of this community, bringing their concepts and their ideas to this commission and asking the commission for its support. I'm trying to add 2 and 2. I don't get it. I can't get 4. I wanted to bring this up because I think it really is a tragedy. I think it short sells the commission and the decisions that we have made. I think it short sells our police department and decisions that they are making within their own budget. This is not a new GRT tax that we're going to impose on our citizens. This 1/4% has existed since 2011. And now, because one individual gets it in their mind that they don't like what the commission is doing, they don't like how the police department is spending their money, you elect us, or don't elect us, as the case might be, to make decisions that are in what we feel are in the best interest of you, the citizens. You've never questioned our judgment on this particular issue for 5 years. Why now? Any other questions from any other commissioner?
Can I make one comment, sir?
Yes, sir.
We have a ride-along program, and I invite anyone from the public. We work for them. We're public servants. That's what we do. I invite anyone that would like to come and see what we do every day to come. It's a simple form, 3 or 4 lines, fill it out, go on a ride-along. Get to know who those officers, those men and women are that are out there doing the job day in and day out. They're great folks. They do a good job now. 3 years ago when I got here, retention was a big issue, huge issue. In fact, I'd never seen anything like this. We were a stepping stone onto somewhere else. I can tell you right now, we've hired from the community. We've offered some opportunities to our folks, our people that grew up here. This is their community. And guess what? I couldn't be happier or more pleased with how that's worked out. They bleed Truth or Consequences Police Department. That's who they are. And this is not a stepping stone, it's a career. And that's been one of the major changes. I look forward to hopefully being able to implement these programs, because in a 5 to 7 year, you'll see such evidence-based measured goals within that short period of time. It's going to change the dynamics of the community.
Chief, I do have one more question. You have analyzed your budget, obviously.
Yes.
Do you feel confident that the 1/4 of 1% of GRT that is dedicated for public safety is enough money to pay down the bond and any other expenses that might be incurred in the delivering of a world-class safety complex to the citizens of TRC, and, sir, have a few dollars left over for other budget ideas or constraints that your budget needs? Is there enough money to that, or are you going to turn around in 2 years and say, no, I made a mistake, Manager Fuentes and city commissioners, I need more money now in my budget to cover this nut, this obligation?
When I first arrived here, I looked at our budget. I started asking questions. We made some reductions right off the bat. We are big on asset management. We became very fiscally responsible. I want to say in that time what we reduced about 6% across the board. Not only am I sure, after I had said, yeah, I think we're really good here, I am positive, I am very confident this is the right amount. I went and had somebody else double check my numbers. Yes, I am very comfortable and confident that we're not going to be back here in 2 years saying we need more money. Last year, we fell under our baseline budget for operations and salaries, so I'm extremely confident that we're going to do that. And this isn't something that I dreamed up. Obviously, I'm lucky that I'm part of it. However, this is something that's been going on for a number of years, and I would not engage or even get this going if I was not confident and absolutely positive that we cannot operate and live under the budget constraints that we have and still manage to retain our folks.
And Chief, would you say it's fair that this has the support of your department?
Across the board.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much for the update. We appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
The commission might want to consider moving the executive session up on the agenda. I think there was a phone call we're going to make, and I think there was a deadline when we could do it.
Okay. The will of the commission. Anyone have any problems with that? We could take maybe a couple-minute break right now. I'm sorry? Okay, Mayor Pro Tem has a meeting at 4:30. Do you think we can do that within that time frame?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
All right.
Oh, yeah, I think so, sure.
So,
Excuse me just for 1 second.
Renee?
do I need a motion to change the order now, since we're into the agenda, or I could just say we're going to go into recess, and we will come back and do
It would be better to have a motion to discuss executive session next, and then do the motion to go into executive session.
Right, I agree.
Okay, so we will recess for 3 minutes, or as quickly as we can walk, and we will come back and go into executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we move item K, executive session, just right below item H4.
All right, I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second.
Second, Mayor.
I have a second by Commissioner Hessler. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carries unanimously. I now need a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we go into executive session under K1, threatened or pending litigation, Hot Springs Land Development, and 714 Cooper pursuant to 1015-1H7.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second.
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Franco. Any further discussion? Hearing none, can I have a roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead?
Aye.
Honorable Rob Eschler?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
Aye.
Honorable Joshua Franklin.
Aye. Thank you very much. We are in executive session. First open session, I need someone to stipulate, please.
Mr. Mayor, I stipulate that only matters pertaining to threatened or pending litigation, Hot Springs land development, were discussed pursuant to 10-15-187, and no action was taken.
Okay. I have a stipulation on the first part of our executive session. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, please. This motion is long. City Clerk. The City Commission of Truth or Consequences approved a settlement agreement with Hot Springs Land Development and agreed to de-annex the property we acquired in 2008. The Commission therefore approves a declaration prepared by Ms. Hoffman to vacate the court order of April 21st, 2017, which included for de-annexation also property acquired by the city in 2003. The 2003 annexation was not part of the equation with Hot Springs Land Development. It was to connect the city to the airport. Hot Springs Land Development was not part of the annexation equation at that particular time.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. I have a motion by Commissioner Clark. I need a second. I will second that motion. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Let the record show it carries unanimously. On the second item, number 714 Copra, we didn't have enough time to really do that part of executive session justice because Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead is late for a previous appointment. That is a commitment that she cannot get out of. And I am going to therefore make a motion that we take that particular item under executive session and put it for executive session at the next City Commission meeting, which I think is October 11th, which would be October 11th, and at that particular time, we will have a full commission to discuss this. That is my motion, to postpone the executive session of the 714 Cobra, to put it on the October 11th City Commission meeting under executive session. I have a motion and a second by Commissioner Hessler. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It carries. And I apologize for the weather and for the long wait, but we will deal with this. We are now back in executive session. Thank you, Mayor Mochan. We have H5, authorization to send...
You just announced we're now back in executive session.
Did I say executive? I meant open. Sorry.
Mr. Mayor,
thank you for catching
I have
that.
to excuse myself at this moment, and I will...
Understood.
See you all later. Thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you. Thanks for staying in for the last couple of minutes.
You're welcome.
H5, discussion action, authorization to send a second letter of concern to Holloman Air Force Base for the F-16 proposed action. If you'll remember, we requested the authority to represent the city through the commission to send Mr. Andrew Gomelak a letter of concern, and then we sent out, we had the meeting at the Civic Center, which was probably attended by about, I think, 150 people. And I would say probably 149.9% of them were against the proposed area. So we sent Mr. Gomelak a letter again. And I'd like to read that letter, and so then you'll understand why I'm going to ask Commissioner Clark to take the lead on this request for the second letter of concern. So the letter that was drafted on September 19th to Mr. Andrew Gomelak run as follows, and I'll be real quick, it's only 5 lines. On behalf of the Commission, City Manager Fuentes, and the citizens of TRC, thank you and the representatives from Holloman. I especially want to thank you for the time spent with me, and a great big thanks for the time spent with Commissioner Kathy Clark. As discussed, I have put the item of the F-16 requested airspace back on the agenda for our September 27th meeting. I realize that the comment period ends September 25th and appreciate your offer of extending that time for us. Our letter of concerns and suggestions for available alternatives will be on your desk no later than October 10th, 2017. After I left the building at about 10 of 8, Commissioner Clark and her husband actually spent more time with Mr. Gomelak, and she did call me and she said, I've got additional information I found out. So with that said, the bottom line here, what we're looking for is authorization from the commission to send another letter before October 10th. So I'm going to ask Commissioner Clark to take the lead on this. Commissioner Clark.
Thank you. Commissioners, if you'll take a peek up here at this map, I got permission to take a picture of it. This is White Sands area right here that they fly over. It's run by the Army. Holloman Air Force Base has like second and third dibs on it. The Army has number 1 dibs. Where they fly most of the time is in this area right here, and over here to the east. There's another picture. That's their preferred area to be flying if they can't get onto White Sands. That little section down here, they're trying to expand that airspace. This area over here, that's 511B and 511D. Those are the 2 areas that butt up against Elephant Butte Lake, and those are the ones of concern to us, where they're bringing in these F-16s from Utah, and they're wanting to be able to use that airspace. So in the process, some of the things that we were concerned about initially is this is a bird migratory pathway. We don't want the sonic booms. We don't want them flying at 500 feet. We don't want 20,000 flights in a year on this particular area. It's right over the Armendaris Ranch where the bat sanctuaries are. F-16s have the highest crash rate with birds. As soon as they crash, the airplane goes down. Where are they going to go? We got all of these birds flying through. We got our vultures. Vultures can't dive where most birds will dive, so you're going to run into 4 pounds of vulture. So there are a lot of really big problems. And what's going to happen to our elderly people who have these sonic booms and all of this kind of stuff. So brought up all of these issues with Mr. Gomelak, and fortunately there were like 6 other people that we had to our own attention. And what we learned were some of the things that if a city commission were to write a request letter directly to the Holloman and ask of certain things, that we would have more of an impact to get this on. And I did get a yay if we wrote these that made sense, and I walked through this with six of these different people, including an instructor. And so I'm going to give you that list, but they said that they would put it, if we asked them, in their rules and regulations manuals for pilot training, so that if a pilot and or an instructor violated any of these rules and regulations that we're asking for and they agreed to, that they would be grounded. So there's some serious repercussion if they break these. And what we were able to get was, and here's just a little information I didn't know, is that in order for a jet, an F-16, to reach sonic boom level, they have to go 768 miles per hour, and they can't leave Holloman and go west into these 2 areas with enough space or enough mileage.
No, be quiet.
Sorry, that was my phone. With enough mileage to be able to reach sonic boom to hit the 5111 over here by the lake, and be able to hit that mileage, 768 miles per hour, and be able to turn around. Because when they get to that sonic boom, they need a wide girth to be able to turn. So there's no way that they're going to be able to get to a sonic boom in this 5111 area that we're talking about. So that took care of that problem, but we can ask them to keep all of that sonic boom east of the Catalina Mountains, which is the ones where Turner's Ranch is. And that's far enough away that wherever they're booming, we're never going to hear it. So we can ask that. That's one of the things we can put in there. I did ask them if they would consider not flying lower than 10,000 feet in the 5111 areas. because migratory birds normally don't go higher than 8,000 feet. Isn't that correct, Mayor? 8,000 feet, so they would not interfere with any of the migratory pathways of any of our birds. It'd be safer for them, and it's safer for our birds, and far enough away that it's not going to disturb them, theoretically. I asked them if they would schedule their least invasive tactics, because they have like a school program, and they set it up, and they work around the Army. So if the Army's got their tactics going on in White Sands, there's another interesting factoid, is if the Army's using White Sands, they can't fly through White Sands to get to the 5111. So every time that the Army has put dibs on the White Sands area, which is kind of the up and down, they won't even be able to use that 5111 for that period of time, which was good information. I asked them if they would be able to use their least invasive parts of their classes and schedule those if they're coming over to the 5111s, so they're not like dropping things, they're not doing those kind of maneuvers, just basically like, you know, up and downs or something that's just whatever the least invasive is. And this was like talking to the flight instructor directly. And that they would use the 5111 as their last choice to fly into. So when they're using White Sands first and then use that area over to the right, they also fly over Ruidoso and Cloudcroft. So we would be their choice of last resort. And that we get this in their rules and regulations. So basically, what we got them to say is sonic booms will stay on this side of the San Cristobals. They also told me that that they're not going to be flying all of the F-16s this direction. They fly in pairs. So there'll only be 2 of them at a time, and they're only going to be flying in a 6-hour period of time during the day. They don't fly past 10 o'clock at night. So, and if you're up about 10,000 feet, we're hardly even going to see them. So that was kind of a nice thing to know also. And the deal about the shaft, I didn't really get very far with that, but mostly the shaft and flares is going to be east over towards White Sands, not in our direction. And that what they were trying to say is basically the composition of the chaff is exactly what sand is made out of. So by the time it gets down to the ground, you can't tell the difference between chaff and sand, because that's the chemical components of it, which I don't know what that means, but that's what the information I got. So the recommendation after talking to him is that we write this letter once again for this next round to Mr. Gomelak et al. And ask them to put in their rules and rule books that those things that I just mentioned, and follow through with it to see if in fact they will agree to it. I do know that this similar list is being proposed by the Armendaris Ranch to them, and so they're getting this from the City of Truth and Consequences and the Armendaris Ranch, the same kind of thing. So that's my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. Any questions from the commission? I've got one. Do you think there's any, I don't like them flying over near us as a populated area. I don't like them flying over the dam, 101-year-old cement structure. I don't like the fact that unfortunately accidents happen with airplanes and training, and these are training. That means this is not recertification. This is training on how to fly the F-16. And so did you get, Commissioner Clark, any sense that there is any wiggle room to get?
Absolutely, we could add that in there.
Stay
away from the lake.
Damn thing east.
Well,
Stay away
east
from
of the
lake.
Cristobals, the San Cristobals is pretty much what I was kind of getting from them, because that keeps them out of the migratory flight, it keeps them away from the bat caves, and it keeps them away from the big part of the problem with the Armendaris.
And is Joshua Marks, Mr. Turner's lawyer, is he happy with that?
Yes.
Because it would be really great if Turner and the city
asked the same
didn't
thing.
partner on the same letter, but in the same letter addressed the same concerns and came up with the same solutions.
And the other thing that was interesting, Mayor, is that there already is a no-fly zone directly above the city of Elephant Butte and the City of Truth and Consequences. They cannot get close to either one of those cities.
Do you know what close means?
Above them. above them, anywhere. There's anywhere from the city straight up to wherever you go to outer space. They cannot fly over those. But we could ask them to stay away from the lake completely, but preferably east of the Cristobal's.
Because my concern, Commissioner Clark, is also at those, that's not supersonic speeds.
Right.
But it's funny, one of the people who I had lunch with, Tesla Motors Club on Sunday, he's an F-16 pilot out of Holloman, and he's Hannibal's friend, the guy who was the shaved head guy.
Yeah.
So it was quite interesting.
There's
So-
something else I need to just make mention, and I did talk to Attorney Rubin about this one. I do have an interest in a property that has potentially a possibility for a flight over it.
Right.
But he didn't feel that it was a conflict of interest at all, so I just wanted to make sure that that was made public.
And I'll confirm that.
Thank you.
And my concern is, I'm glad that they can't fly over us, but at 400 miles an hour, which is what they use for training from this gentleman I was with lunch on Sunday, that's the speed that they train at, 400 miles an hour. If you took a look at the east, I misspoke. If you take a look at the west boundary of 5111 CD, it's over the water, it's over the corner of our dam, and as the crow flies, from that point to our hospital, our assisted living, our nursing, and our citizens is 3.2 seconds.
Well, let's just ask
So-
them to stay away from the Rio Grande pathway itself, which would include the lake completely, calling it the migratory bird path, just to avoid any potential problems with some of the endangered species or non-endangered species. Just keep them away from the water.
So what do you think about this also? A lot of citizens have taken the time to email the commission. Manager comes through Linda Sparks' office. I've kept, obviously, for obvious reasons, all of those emails, all of those letters of concern. Would you advise that we attach those citizens' letters of concern with the city's letter
Why
of
not?
concern?
Number 4 specifically says, by the way, avoid flying over the lake. That was one of the agreements.
Okay.
So that takes care of the dam, the lake, and that migratory path. So I'll give this exact list to the city clerk if she needs it.
Okay. Any other concerns? So what I would like then to suggest, whoever makes the motion, I would like to ask Commissioner Clark to take, if she would accept me as her second, to work with her on this.
On the letter?
But to help couch the letter, since you had last dibs with Mr. Gomalak, to also accompany all our citizens' concerns. And I want to get this thing out. We can't wait till October 11th, which is our next meeting. So obviously, we will take a look with legal and with Manager Fuentes once the letter is done. And if the commissioners feel comfortable in accepting that we're going to do what the will of the commission is, I want to get that return receipt requested in the mail yesterday. So if someone would care to make the motion, or I will make the motion, whatever, but that would be it. So I will make a motion to authorize Commissioner, that the commission authorizes Commissioner Clark, working in consort with Commissioner Green, to couch a letter of concern and to offer alternatives on this proposed F-16 training area. That letter to be approved by City Manager Fuentes and City Attorney Rubin.
Second that.
I have a motion and I have a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those please in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. It carries unanimously. I would just tell the citizens, if you have any additional facts that you feel will add credibility to this letter, please get it to me by tomorrow, because we're going to start on this sooner than later. So please, whatever you have, please, Ms. Martin, send it to me. Okay. The next item is new business discussion action, appointment to the Library Advisory Board. Ms. Taylor. Ms. Renee Canton, our clerk treasurer.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. The vacancy for this was published on September 13th. We only had one application that was received. The current terms for Pat Freemeyer and Carol Wilson were due to expire in 2017, and they submitted their applications, which are also attached. And Isabel Court has resigned, and they're requesting the approval to reappoint Ms. Pat Freemeyer, Carol Wilson, and to approve Michael Bankson to fill the vacancy, and that would give them a full board again.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Any concerns? I will stand for a motion for approval of all. Jay, can we do all three at one time?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's pretty standard.
To all three. I will make a motion for the appointment to the Library Advisory Board of the reappointment of Pat Freemeyer and Carol Wilson, and the appointment of Michael Bankson to the Library Advisory Board. Mr. Bankson's term will expire in 2020.
I second that motion.
I have a motion and a second by Commissioner Clark. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Let the record show it carries unanimously. Aye, 2. Discussion action, night sky friendly lighting program. Commissioner Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Easley, if you got a minute, can you ask Mr. Easley to help me out with this one when I make this presentation? There's been, over the years, several people coming up and either at the 3 minutes or, calling me up, and I'm about becoming a night sky friendly city, which is kind of a neat idea on some level, but and Mr. Easley was explaining this to me today, and if you wouldn't mind just explaining to the rest of the commission, each time we replace a city light, I think that's really important that they know that concept so that we can take this to the next step.
Yes, every evening, Mayor, fellow commissioners, every light that we order now for the past 3 to 4, probably 5 years, they all come sky friendly now. And we just don't go out and replace them. We wait till the head actually burns up and dim. We replace it with sky friendly light. So they're expensive. They're around $140 to $240. So.
Do we know the difference in the cost to run the night friendly skylight as opposed to the current ones that we have?
About the same.
About the same.
Yeah,
So,
all it is just the head. If you go down like North Dayton and everything, you'll see certain ones that have the glass on it still. The new sky friendly, they're just cut off where it just shines down on the street instead of going out.
somebody asked me a question, Mr. Easley, and I couldn't answer this. Is it possible just to get the shade and not have to change the whole fixture?
No, you have to.
You have to get the whole contraption?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it possible, let's say if somebody wanted to do it in their own neighborhood and were willing to fork out $150 their own money, could that happen?
Sure.
Okay. So what the state did under Governor Johnson is they put in a night sky friendly rules and regulations. And if you read through them really clearly, there's a couple of things that I wanted to bring out to people's attention. That the shielding is something kind of nice to have go down because it does kind of keep the sky a little more available. And they put some restrictions on replacing lights, and this is what Mr. Easley just told us, is that every time we replace an old one, we have to put in a night-friendly sky light. And we can replace them one at a time in this act. It doesn't need to be all at one particular time. The really important part that comes up on this is if the commission, for example, decided that we wanted to be a night-friendly area, the act requires that the public pay for it, not the city. So that's very important. People that come up and say, we want, Mr. Easley's electric company to put in night-friendly lights all over the city, and you guys pay for it. Well, that's not what the Act provides. The Act provides that the public has to pay for it. That was my question. If somebody from the public wanted their neighborhood lights, all those, down ones, night-friendly sky, would they be able to come in and do that, work that deal with you? And what I'm getting is yes. So if these people have a complaint in their neighborhood and they want to cough up the money, they can do so. Are we good with that? But also to know that if we made the decision, we would be putting another tax again on our people. And he's gradually replacing them anyway. But if we gave the public the option, which is go fine, you buy it, then they have that option, and it's off the table for us to be taxing our people. Does that make any sense? Is there anything that you wanted to add to that?
Not really, other than, we're moving forward now. We're still behind times. A lot of people are talking about going to LEDs now too. So the DOT, whenever they updated the North Interchange, they put LEDs out there. I don't know if you ever go out there and look at route policies at nighttime going home. And it is compared to the streetlights downtown, and you go out there and look, they are they're brighter, but they shine down. They don't shine up and out and everything. There's quite a bit of difference, but LEDs, that's why everybody's going. Cruises, everybody's going LEDs now.
So if we wanted to give the public an option, would we want to give them one or two options of lights that they could consider, or would we want to have something consistent all the way through the city? And so this is the option, this one particular type of light.
We could give them the option to go LEDs or just the sky friendly. I know the LEDs are expensive.
What would the LED cost?
We just have to look into that. I could find out and let you know though.
So that was the discussion. I wanted to just let you guys know that, this is a tax to the public. This is not something required of us to do. And I don't think the public is aware of that. And if they were aware of it, they might either go talk to you or maybe come up with a different subject for us. Anyway, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Easley. Yeah, Mr. Travis.
I do have a question. Is this going to be is this going to affect residents too?
This, I've got a copy of this right here. The residents, theoretically, lights in like ballparks and stuff like that should be turned off at 11 o'clock at night. And I'm not really sure the way if it's worded. I don't know. Bro, did you get a chance to read all of this?
No, ma'am, I haven't.
You want a copy?
Sure.
I'll give this to you. But there's a thing about turning lights off at 11 o'clock. And I think that, it's a real safety issue. If you turned off every city light at 11 o'clock and you got somebody there at midnight, you got every house on the planet is going to be broke into. And I know personally there's a couple of neighbors of mine that have these big floodlights that are on all night long, and it just takes an extra shade to block it out if that's their gig and they feel like it. As far as I know, this doesn't say that they're required to take the floodlights off, but you'd probably understand it better than me.
Well, I tell you, over the years we've run into a lot of problems where people want their security. They want brightness out night. A lot of people they call us and want an estimate for us to put up a light in their backyard and everything for security. And the next door neighbor complains about it being too bright. Well, the customer paid for it. There's nothing really we can do other than put the sky friendly light on it, but we'll run into problems like that.
Bo, have you done a study comparing LED lights to the regular lights and finding if it would pay for itself over a short period of time or a long period of time?
That's the thing is whenever the DOT did the North Interchange, I went ahead and put in a meter up at the North Interchange and a meter on the South Interchange, and I've gotten probably 3-4 months worth of data versus the LEDs compared to the bulb. And right now the LEDs are using more than the regular bulbs.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Give me another month or two, and I'll bring that data to you with the graph and everything I'll show you.
Commissioner Frank?
Well, while I have you up there and we're talking about this topic, lead by example for the city, and I just want to see if you couldn't address the spotlight at City Hall on the flag.
Yes, sir.
It's not pointed directly at the flag, and it's casting a huge amount of light in the downtown. So if you were a guest at the Sierra Grande Lodge and you stepped out to the balcony to enjoy the night sky, you can't even see most of the stars because that light is sort of shining right in your face. So I don't know if it needs a smaller bulb or to be shaded the right way, or if lighting that flag at night is necessary. If the flag maybe couldn't come down instead of having it lit at night, but maybe you can come up with a solution.
Okay. Yeah, we'll take a look at that and see what we can do.
And, Commissioner Clark, since I think you mentioned this is more of education to the public, that you just don't call the utility company and tomorrow they're going to change and give you a night light. It's your dime, unfortunately.
Exactly.
So I think what we might want to consider doing is putting together a single-page document of what the rights of the citizens are. They have a right to request it, but this is the cost, and give them some who we're buying from, because obviously whoever you're buying from right now, you know that fits the structure that we've got right now, and give them, here are a couple, we're not promoting anybody, but here's some information, and do the,
That's
this way
Mayor, it's an interesting concept, and we could even refer them to the New Mexico Night Sky Protection Act, so they could read it themselves. And we could even put it on a utility bill, couldn't we? To say, by the way, just read this Protection Act, and here's what your possibilities are if you want to follow through with it, and this is what we're currently doing.
And we could take a one-page document and put it in the relocation package, the welcome package, or whatever. I mean, I think there's just misinformation out there that everyone thinks that it should be the city's responsibility, and according to this act, it's not. It's the individual requester's responsibility.
Yes, sir.
Unless they vote this on themselves, and then they have to pay for it.
Yeah.
So that's the only way it would happen all at once.
Right. Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so would you feel comfortable, Commissioner Clark, in making a motion to put together a small little informational page that when this does come up, the utility office can hand out something to a customer and say, this is where we're getting the authority, it's on, you do it, we'll install it, but you buy it,
I don't mind to do that as long as I can get Mr. Easley to help me with that.
Sure.
After you've read this, then we can draft something up.
Okay, so we should then postpone that? You want to make a motion to postpone it until we get additional information? Or?
Yeah, let's just make a motion to postpone, but we'll get it done and put it on for approval on the next agenda.
Okay, so I have a motion to
Is that good?
postpone this to bring back in 2 weeks.
Our little note?
Yeah, just a little, information to the citizens so they know what their options are here.
Second motion.
I have a second by Commissioner Frankel. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Rob. City managers reports.
Just one quick item, Mayor Commissioners, tomorrow I will be traveling with the Mayor Stubblefield from Williamsburg. Will be attending the New Mexico Self Insurance Fund mandatory veterans training, and this is part of the requirement every year to make sure we meet our goal for the dividend. So it will be in Ruidoso, so I'll be traveling with her up to Ruidoso tomorrow.
And you'll be back.
And we'll be back in the afternoon, yes. Just for one day, just keep going and coming back.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, Attorney, City Attorney.
Yeah, just a reminder, we're going to have our foreclosure sale tomorrow. It's 10 o'clock at the Sierra County Courthouse. The property is regarding 808 Maple, and we've advertised that it's going to happen, so hopefully we'll have a crowd there tomorrow. And Rob, you gonna be able to make it? You think? Okay, so that's good. Okay, so we'll confer between now and then, and we'll be ready to go.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hessler, I'm looking at, what happened to Sandy? Oh, she left. Commissioner Hessler.
Mayor, Commissioners, I need a little guidance here. We're getting to that time of year when we do magic witnesses evaluation. I'd like to know how you'd like me to proceed. A recommendation I would make is that for the next meeting, possibly, we could go into executive session. We could allow Manager Fuentes to make his case for his evaluation. And he got his evaluation last time. He's got the template. He could discuss his evaluation with us so that we could take notes and listen to his accomplishments and what's happened so that we can use that information when we actually evaluate.
Okay.
And then after that, maybe the meeting after that, we'll have to go to executive session one more time to actually give Manager Fuentes his final evaluation for the year. So this is an annual evaluation. So we'd have to go to an executive session twice in a row for 2 successive meetings, and that would be okay.
As long as it says on the executive session, this is the annual review.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm concerned about going back into executive session.
I would say
over and
required
over and over
annual.
again.
Can we say required?
Okay, so again, thank you for taking the lead on that. You'll just disseminate the information and.
So I'll do it in 2 forms. I'll send an email with the evaluated package to you guys again, and I'll also do hard copies in your mailboxes. And again, you can start filling it out if you want to, but I'd like to hear from Manager Fuentes this next time around so that we make sure we didn't miss anything and give him an opportunity for the next couple of weeks to kind of put this presentation together.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Clark.
Nothing.
Commissioner Franklin.
Yes, yes, please. This is concerning the drainage project I'm working on for the downtown. Last night when it was raining very heavy, Miami had passed heavy monsoon floods that we've had that have flooded the downtown, so I dropped a message to Van Clodier. If you all recall, several months ago, I made a proposition to the commission to do a pilot project on Oak Street to utilize our currently existing drainage ponds. And that did pass with the board approval, and we were budgeted some funds for that. When I spoke with Van, I asked him how soon he'd be getting to work on this project, and I want to read his response that I received this morning. I sent him a photo of downtown last night, and he said, "Great photo of a big mess that I know how to fix. I had sent a draft contract to Linda Sparks on July 9th and have not heard back from her since. As soon as we have a signed contract, I will schedule this job." I would like to direct staff to go ahead and follow up with Van Clodier so we can get this project started as soon as possible. He's in high demand, and he does have some available time now to work on this project. So if we could please get staff to follow through and have Linda execute that signed contract. That's all I have.
Thank you. And I will try to make it as short. The word is try. I have found out that we have lost, as we know, the rodeos because of lack of cash prizes. I have found out that we have lost the old-time fiddlers to, of all places, Lordsburg because of lack of cash prizes. I have found out, as we all know, that we lost the karaoke district championships to Ruidoso. Thank you, Gina, because of lack of cash prizes. So what I have taken upon myself to do is I'm working with a gentleman by the name of Tom Dixon, who is the local government representative for the lodgers tax program. And my question to him is this: 20% of lodgers tax is allowed to be used for promotional items. What is the difference if an entity contracts out with a potter to make 5 commemorative coffee pots with the name of the event and truth or consequences on it, and gives the potter cash, or uses the 20% of their allocation of lodgers tax by the city, by the commission, to be used for cash prizes? And it's a stumper, because now it's illegal up in Santa Fe. I'm going to suggest that if this is, and the rodeo, Clint Benjamin, and another one, we've lost it to Socorro. Ruidoso's got karaoke. Old Time Fiddlers has Lordsburg. If we are going to try to attract
And to lose the old-time fiddlers, which has gotten us, it's probably here before Kathy came to
Oh,
town.
I inherited it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that hurts. That really hurts. I mean, I have nothing against Lawrenceburg, but to lose it to Lawrenceburg, come on. So if this is the market, if this is what's happening out there, we've got to come up with a constructive, inventive, legal way to get our hands on cash and use cash as an award. It was brought up I spoke to the gentleman with the old-time fiddlers, John Tate, and I said, so why did we lose it? He said, well, would you travel 400 miles round trip, stay in a hotel overnight for 2 nights, food and gas, to win a $10 plastic trophy? That's the market. So if we're going to be a tourist destination, if we have hired a tourist event coordinator, we have got to give that individual tools to work with and to be competitive in what the market is bearing. And right now, the market is bearing cash, and we're not a player. And this is beginning to show up, and we cannot allow this list to get longer and longer and longer. So as soon as I get back from Mr. Dixon, and as soon as legal gets back from Mr. Dixon, I will report to the manager and my fellow commissioners on how they're doing it. I know how Socorro is doing it. I'll tell you right now, the Socorro Council gives the mayor, I'm not pushing for this, believe me. I'm not asking for this, but this is how they do it. In his budget, there is, or her, whoever the mayor is, it's a him right now, there's discretionary money, and the prize money comes out of the Mayor Basker. It comes out of his allocation from the budget. For example, also, tell you what I found out over the mayor's conference in Albuquerque. In the Albuquerque budget, each council person who represents a district gets $1 million, and they have discretionary power on how they spend the $1 million. It's called pork. You support the projects that are in your district. That's a lot of money, $1 million. Discretionary, they give it to a council person, they have to say where the money went, but it's not a vote by the commission, it's not a vote by the mayor, there's no veto, they just do it. So I think that if that's what I am hearing, and I would love when you guys travel around, let's all talk about this thing, that we have to start looking at our events that we're losing. How do we bring them back? And if it's cash that's bringing these people to events and we're losing the events, then either we close our doors and not spend a lot of money doing events and tourism and all that kind of jazz and lodger's tax, or come up with a way. So that's what the market is. As soon as I hear, I will find out. We did have a lovely lunch on Sunday at Latitude 33 with Tesla Motor Club. It was their board. Representative Rebecca Dow was there, and our tourism event coordinator, Melanie Anderson, who I was very, very pleased to announce that handled herself, I thought, brilliantly and very professionally. And the whole idea was to get them down here, since there's a charge station now behind Holiday Inn. They're checking us out, and we're asking, they have a 260 membership club. And if we could get 50% of the membership down here, we want to do a mystery getaway weekend with trips up to Chloride and have them birding and whatever, all these type of things, just to get heads in beds and showcase our community. So I thought that was interesting. And the last thing, since we're talking about LEDs, so I'm talking to Manager Fuentes, and he asked me, listen, go over, do me a favor, I'm busy, you're going to City Hall? Yes, I am. Do me a favor, speak to Sonia and have her print out how much the city spends on lighting up itself, the street lights and the city buildings. And I got the information, I copied all of you on this and put it in your mailbox, and I said, do you mind if I ask you why? And he said, yeah, because Bo and Tracy, to their credit,
realize that the city pays $251,921.82 to light itself up. That is absolutely just money out of the checkbook. Now, I'm really upset to hear that the lead lights are more expensive than the regular ones, because, Bo, that was not the question. That was not the answer I wanted to hear. But that's a big number. And maybe and I believe, I understand through the manager, that Tracy is looking for grants, because, to Bo's point, it's not only the bulb, it's the fixture that you have to train out. I thought you take out a bulb, you stick another bulb, and you're home free. Manager Fuentes told me real quickly how wrong I was on that on a meeting. So you're talking about a lot of money. But here's an item that I think that it's well worth staff's time, and I applaud staff for trying to save a cost. We cannot, to your point, we can't shut the street lights off at 11 o'clock at night. We cannot we can't ask our staff to work in the dark. If we could cut that by 50%, you're talking $125,000 every 4 years. There's $500,000 that we could use to buy sensors for our offices, where you walk in, the light goes on, you walk out, the light goes off. All these type of things that we can run the city more effectively, more efficiently, and save money in doing so, and create a pot of money that will, to Commissioner Heschler's point, that will self-fund itself, or we use the savings for something else. So that's kind of my report. That's where we are. So thank you. I will keep you in the gristmill as we move forward. And seeing that there is no other additional business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn, Mayor.
Second, thank you very much.
Bring this to me.
Yeah, I
I've got mine.
Okay, I didn't know.
I have that.